Welcome back, members. Now we'll start with the second session for the day. Uh, can I request our chairperson Divya to escort both the speakers, CA Vijaya Raja sir and CA Srilakshmi P onto dais and then welcome them with floor broken. Thank you, ma'am. I have a privilege in introducing my guru, CA Vijaya Raja sir. He is a chartered accountant, cost accountant. He holds a Bachelor of Law degree. He is a company secretary from ICSI also. He holds Master of Science, Psychology, BCom graduate from Bangalore University, and insolvency professional from IBBI. He is a practicing chartered accountant and partner at Guru & Jana, heading the consulting, due diligence, valuation and advisory team. A corporate trainer and visiting faculty for over 30 years. Past member of the Central Taxes Committee of Federation of Karnataka Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Presented various papers on income tax, corporate laws, GST across India. Conducted corporate trainings in field of taxation, corporate laws, finance and GST with several corporates. He is the author of Corporate and Other Laws, popular publication in CA profession, author of Corporate and Economic Laws, another popular publication in CA profession. Was a visiting faculty at ICAI, ICMA, CFA, MBA and such other institutes. Has coached thousands of chartered accountancy students. With this brief introduction, I present before you CA Vijaya Raja sir. We have another speaker for the day, Srilakshmi ma'am. CA Srilakshmi is an insolvency professional, chartered accountant, company secretary, MSc Psychology, Masters and Bachelors in Commerce, gold medal from Ajim Premji, Independent Director certification from Institute of Corporate Affairs. Currently partner at Guru & Jana, chartered accountants, heading India Entry Services, corporate laws, insolvency, payroll, labor and HR functions. Worked with BMR advisors also. Madam has spoken at ICI sessions, featured on All India Radio and Power TV, handled corporate trainings, career counseling in campus placements, trustee of CAPS and Mahapriya Guru & Jana Foundation. With this brief introduction, I present before you CA Srilakshmi P. Over to you, sir.
In business requires money, kasu, pano, pesa, rokra, dundu. So without money, nothing happens. So we need money. Before I get into the funding compliances, I'll just tell you one of the things that happened when I was in US. I had gone to US for the first time, I think some 20-25 years back. At that time when I'd been to US, of course, I was not driving, somebody else was driving the vehicle. And we went on to that road. Every road looks like a highway. Even the small road looks like a highway only. The vehicle went there and he stopped. They were basically crossroads. Two roads this side, two roads that side. He had stopped. No signal light. There's no signal light. No traffic police. Nothing was there. But he stopped. Then I saw what he's doing. That side also no vehicles. This side also no vehicles. Behind me also no vehicles. It looks like as if there's some band going on. It was like that. And he had stopped. Then I asked him, why did you stop? He said, there's one small board. It says halt and proceed. I think you would have seen that. Halt and proceed. He said there's a board which says halt and proceed. That's why he stopped. Then I asked him, of course he's a local, I know him from many years, so I told him, Talaidiya, ingade ungade yaru illa, akka pakka yaru illa, na koi aage, na koi piche, na koi aju baju, then why are you stopping your vehicle? He said, board is there. It says halt and proceed. So my job is to halt and then only proceed. So I'm supposed to stop, see for a few seconds that side, this side, then go. Actually for kilometers together we can see the road, it's straight. There is not a single vehicle on the road, but they'll stop. So I felt very crazy. I said, this is stupid. Ade Namuralli, told to come. Yeah. So here it is not about signal, or that is not the Mama Idara. The camera is there, where the late ticket, is there, or that. We see something, a lot of other things not like this. Then I realized something very interesting there. He said, if we also do that, saying that nobody is there, I'll go. Then what will happen? They'll start putting signal light. Because I'm not stopping, they'll start putting a signal light. So signal light will start coming. Signal light also I'll start jumping. Because the definition of signal light is like that only. No. Green means go. Orange means go fast. Red means go fastest. Then what we'll do? Along with signal light, there will be one traffic police also in spite of signal light. Traffic police also pop up when he's seeing that side, I'll go this side. And therefore camera, we'll start putting camera. So that means what have we done? What was supposed to be a simple system of traffic became complicated, wherein there's a signal light, then there are traffic rules for the signal light, then we have the policemen standing there, then we have the cameras, and then you get those tickets, and then online we have to keep seeing whether it is correct or not and keep paying for all those tickets. Everything becomes complicated. So when I'm talking about funding compliances also, whatever complications I'm going to discuss is very similar to what I told you about traffic. It just got complicated. A client once asked me, not asked me, he came and told me, there's a difference, asking a Delhi. He came and told me, sir, cash ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು business ತಗೊಂಡೆ. So he said, I wanted some few crores, I took that money. I said, how did you take? Like this. Not like that. What I did is, if you follow any procedures, he said, what procedure? I want money, I've taken. I said, no, there are funding compliances. He said, business cash ಬೇಕಾ, I've taken. Now it's not so simple at all. Now I can't do that anymore. So if I want money, signal, traffic police, camera, I have to take care of all the aspects. So today it's become highly complicated when we're talking about requirement of funds. It's easy to say ease of doing business, but we all know as professionals how easy is the ease of doing business, especially thanks to our new websites. Wherein I remember at office, Papa, the corporate law team, they were sitting till midnight. I said, for what are you sitting? He said, we want to file one form. I said, to file one form, why are you sitting from morning till night? No, before it will happen in few seconds. I said, now what's happening? Now they show us the solar system. Solar system, in a car, going, the entire solar system is like visible like this, you don't know when it will click, when it will get through types. And that is the stage we are in. Okay, fine. So what? Funding compliances are there, let that be there. The problem is the consequence of not following. So we always say the cost of non-compliance is costlier than the cost of compliance. So that is one dialogue we always tell a client. Client will say, hey, I'm doing this funding, tell me what we should do. We tell that all these procedures are there, our fees is so much. So I'm getting money for my business, for you, for that I have to pay so much money, is it? I have all the fees you have to pay because a lot of formalities are there, we have to take care of a lot of transactions, documentations, everything. He says, no, but this is too expensive. He told me, very expensive. I said, okay, don't take the services, do what you want. Then he asked what will happen. Then the penalty will be 100x of my fees. Because we down the penalty styles, we see unlike the olden days of 1956 Act, 500 rupees, 50 rupees per day, all that we had. Under 1956 Act, 50 rupees per day, 500 rupees, 1000 rupees. Now, Mata 25 lakhs, 2 crores, naturally, no change the made whichever is higher. From lower, they made it higher. And those are being seen the latest notices that is coming from the RD office. Of late, if you see, even for minutes not maintained, there will be a levy penalty of something like around 25 lakhs. Minutes not maintained. And recently, one private company got a notice for not filing some of these forms on time. He has levied a penalty telling per director 2 lakhs. So if they have got some 8 directors, 8 into 2 lakhs each per director. and company separately another 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs. Now there is no limit. So in fact, we wanted to propose next budget, we should not say direct taxes, indirect taxes, we should company law. The major source of revenue can come from company law itself rather than telling from taxes, because full money, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 1 crore is what is that. So therefore comes our role. We are as to what is it that we should take care when it comes to compliances. Now what is the objective of this session? Objective of this session can be twofold. One, understanding the provision of law on funding. It's more important than understanding the provision of law, because I presume all of us being professionals, we know the provisions of law as to what law you have to follow for funding and all that. But then sometimes it's risky to make such assumptions, because first I thought I'll make a proposal. Hey, what do you want? I thought when I come to the session I'll ask you only. Please tell me which one do you want? You want me to take on the provision of law, or you want me to take only on the complexities involved and where as a professional we make mistakes? Being, if I say the article should have made mistake, or the co-professionals should have made mistakes, or the client would have made mistakes, where we should be careful. I thought I'll ask that question when I come here. You want this or you want that? Then I thought if I was sitting there, what I would have told? I told I want both. That's what we always tell, isn't it? Oh, do it. Tell this also, tell that also, both. So I'll tell you the provision of law also, and at the same time we'll talk about all the practical issues what we face in office. That means as professionals where there's a possibility of making mistakes. Because normally that is when we get love letters from ROC office. Saying that this violation you have done, that violation you have done, and so on. So we'll talk about it, both these aspects. Is that okay? I think that's fine. Super. Okay, so let's begin with one simple one to start with. I don't know whether it's visible. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, great. You have got sources of funds can be either domestic or it can be foreign sources. So these are the two possible sources we have, either from within India or from outside India. I will take you through both. Within India will not have any FEMA issues, but outside India will have FEMA issues. So we will talk about both of them. In domestic, there are three possibilities: either public issue, rights issue, private placement. I will not touch upon public issue, because public issue is to do with IPOs. So IPOs generally we know it goes by SEBI. So we will not get into the SEBI part. I don't think that is required for us. We are not discussing IPO here, because if I start discussing IPO, we will not discuss the formalities. We will ask, "Idu IPO hakoda?" Will it become big, right? Will they go to get good returns and so on? So I will not talk about the IPO part. We will get into the other two, that is rights issue and private placement. In those two also, the most important one is private placement. So we'll spend more time on private placement and less time on rights issue part. Coming to foreign there are only two actually. One in the form of equity, or it can be in the form of loans. If it is in the form of loans, it is called ECBs. If it is in the form of equity, we call it as FDI. That is foreign direct investments into India. So these are the aspects that I will discuss. Are we clear on what we will be discussing on? Clear. And in this also, at any point of time, if you want to ask any doubt, please feel free to ask any doubt. You don't have to wait for me to complete my session. It's not that only after I complete the session you have to ask a doubt. If you have any doubt, most welcome. When I used to sit there, many of them used to come, they used to tell, don't disturb in between. Let me complete my presentation, then you ask. I would have forgotten. Because in the fourth slide I had doubt. But you are completing after 60 slides. I would have forgotten what is my doubt also. Yeah? But then I realized one more trick. The trick is, when anybody asks a doubt, you say, that is coming in the next slide. I don't know. Coming in the next slide. Right? So, but anyway, you can feel free to ask doubts whatever you have. So let me start with, I love this. Journal entry for infusing funds. And first you see. Right? After 10th standard, first thing we learned was journal entries in accountancy. So I thought we'll start with accountancy journal entry. Somebody so beautifully said, the more knowledgeable you become, you are supposed to become more and more simple and not more and more complicated. So simplicity comes with higher knowledge. And that is how you start going back to the basics. What happens in between is we are so much into complications, we forget the basics only. I think even for infusion, let's start with the basic. What is the journal entry we will have to pass? If we are talking about infusing funds, if you are bringing funds into the company, what journal entry will all pass? Debit what?
Bank or
Bank. Cash badama will be cash and all. Right? Bank you will tell. Right? Bank. Although we know in PUC we get orders like that only. I remember. First PUC, first journal entry. Cash purchases 85,000. We should learn. And they should teach us. Cash purchases 85,000. And we should write purchase account debit to cash 85,000, 85,000. Nonsense. More than 20,000 not allowed. So many cases 10,000 not allowed. 2,000 also not allowed. So where you are talking about cash flow, that journal entry of Goitha, PS Raman types we should have. Right? Now it is all the Google Pay, Phone Pay and all that. So let's come to journal entry. So bank account is debit. Finally credit what? We will not go through full journal entry. Final journal entry will be bank debit, credit, share capital and premium. Because if I am getting something more than my face value, if I get more than my face value, then we say premium. So basic journal entry is bank account debit to capital and securities premium. This is clear. I want to tell you something very beautiful related to only so much. Related to bank, capital, securities premium. Only related to this. Now I am getting straight away into practical aspect of it. Okay? Straight away into practical aspect. Many of them miss out on this point, so I want you to please focus on these areas because very practical what we follow in office, and I want you also to ensure. Most of you would be doing it, but I thought it's good to reiterate these facts. What is that? Let's start with bank. Looks like a very simple journal entry, bank account debit. It's actually not simple. Because when you say bank account debit, from a client perspective, the discussion we have to have with the client is, who is your banker? From whom you are going to get these funds. Important to understand, right? Especially if the funds are foreign funds, the money is coming from outside India, you have this exchange fluctuations. And there is something called as exchange rate differences that happens. And each bank will give you a different exchange rate. That means same 1 million USD only. That 1 million USD when it gets converted into INR, depending upon who is your AD is your authorized dealer. The AD banker, depending on him, what funds you get it in INR is very different. It's not the same. And therefore, knowing from which bank you're going to get this money is actually very important. So I always tell the client, you're getting 1 million USD is okay, but from which banker are you getting? First you have a discussion with 2-3 banks to understand who will give you the best price for conversion, number one. It doesn't stop there. It goes next step. Because of the complication of law, if I receive more also there is a problem. If I receive less also there is a problem. Because I would have told him send so many dollars. But my entry is not in dollars, right? My journal entry would have been in rupees. If I receive more dollars also I have a problem. If I receive less also there is a problem. Now the banking sector, so you are supposed to talk to the banks and tell them, hey, don't straight away transfer the money into my account. Keep it in your escrow so that only exact INR what I want for allotment, only that much is what you will have to credit. Difference through your escrow only it has to go back. So that means when they make a transfer through whatever SWIFT they do it, you have to tell them saying that so much dollars you tell them, but my INR is this much I want. That means you are giving a mandate to your banker that INR that should sit into my account should be only so much. I hope you are understanding why I am talking about it. So if you are talking about allotting some money, right, to Mr. X, a non-resident, if you have allotted more also you are in trouble because you are not supposed to have received more money. Then refunding becomes an issue. Doesn't stop there. You have got FIRCs. You need to know what is the source it came from and whether the right source code was used. And I know so many cases they use wrong source code. They will use the source code telling it's loan. But what's coming is not ECB. What is coming is equity. Or the other way around. You are getting a loan but you have shown it as equity. Then they'll say then why you did not allot shares. So it's not so simple. So money coming in is not just money coming in, a lot of other things we have to take care. So therefore, the first journal entry, when you talk about bank account debit, so it looks simple, but it's not simple. So what are the things you have to take care with the bank? These are the things I want you to look into. Select the appropriate bank. Why? Because I told you the exchange rate. You should be clear as to what exchange rate you want to discuss with him. What will be the Forex margins, because each banker has a margin. He doesn't give it to you free. He charges you for all that. What will be his bank charges? What is FIRC, purpose code, KYC? Now this is very important, especially from the time now PMLA is coming to picture, especially attracting all of us also. A chartered accountant services also attracts PMLA, and you have seen the latest circulars which has been issued in the last 2 months. So what is our responsibility? Our responsibility is to ask him, hey, get me the proper KYC to know from where this guy is sending the money. Suppose it is from a prohibited place or from a prohibited person, then I am also in trouble because we are getting those funds from a place from there. So therefore those KYC becomes important even for us to understand from where the sources are. At least we should take the respective declarations telling that this is not from prohibited sources, etc. So we saw the entry. So entry, what we said, entry was bank account debit to capital and to securities premium. Bank, I think I have explained to you what all we have to tell the client. See, this is the advice we have to give the client. So it's just not about getting the money, just talk about all these things. What else will you tell him about the other aspect, that is capital? Again, we miss out on these aspects, stamp duty. Normally missed, because I hope you are understanding that whenever we allot the share certificate, and share certificate has to be stamped. These issues come up especially in office when we are doing due diligences. Now there's a VC who comes and says, hey, I'm from my target company, so I want to buy this entity, so I want to make an investment into this entity, so let me do a due diligence. And when you are doing a legal due diligence or a regulatory due diligence, we say that stamp duty violations are there. And what is the consequence of stamp duty violations? Huge. Because they said to compound it for a violation of stamp duty, you're talking about 10 times, 20 times is what the sub-registrar will start levying you as a penalty for not doing the stamping correctly. Otherwise, what happens, the entire document becomes void. And if the document becomes void, the transaction is gone. So I can't make the transaction void, not possible because it's a business. I can only go for compounding and end up paying a lot of money for it. So therefore, stamp duty, normally missed. I hope you're understanding these are the important points what we miss in office. So please ensure that part. Next, SHA. Your shareholders agreement, in short we call it as SHA. Especially most of the funded entities, where there's either an angel investor or there's a VC or there's a PE investments happening into an entity, they always enter into an SHA, the shareholders agreement. What they will say, hey look, I've invested 100 crores. If I've invested 100 crores, I need to have certain rights. One of the rights you will tell is, next time if you're getting some money into your company, either you should take my permission, and without my permission the money should not come. So it's easy to read the Companies Act and say, hey, Companies Act is telling special resolution. I passed special resolution. Not enough. Not enough, because I have an SHA which says that I have to take his special permission because he'll have his affirmative rights, isn't it? And therefore you have to take his affirmative vote for the purpose of getting this infusement. So you have to look into those voting rights. There may be some liquidation rights. Money coming is not just money coming in. Let us say it's a Series A funding. Then the next Series B funding is happening. Now they will say, what is my liquidation rights as compared to Series A and Series B? Both are not same. What we studied was preference share was preference share. We never studied Series A, Series B. We only know in television serials we had series. Yeah, series of TV serials going on. But now we have series here also. Series A, Series B, seed funding, pre-seed funding. ಮುಂಚೆ ಎಲ್ಲ seed ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೋ agriculture ಬೀಜಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ we thinking, right? Or we have a watermelon ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ seed ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. Now we are talking about seed funding, pre-seed funding. So we need to know that at which stage are you doing this infusion of funds. I hope we are getting what we are talking. So when a client comes to us and says, I want some funds, there are a lot of questions you have to ask him about. At what stage are you trying to take these funds? Then we are talking about what is the capital limits. This is very obvious. If I already reach the threshold of capital, then I can't stop there. I have to go beyond this, and therefore we need to ensure that the capital part is taken care. Hey, there's a lot of space here. Once at the back, we have a lot of space. We have kept some, we put kerchief and kept here for you. Saying that you're all coming. So you don't have to worry about those chairs. You can come here. And if you sit in front, I will not ask any extra questions. Yeah. Balcony only always favorite. Right. Please come. A lot of spaces here. I asked in one of the sessions, what? In class also balcony? Yeah, now also balcony. Why like this in the car? In all movie theaters, if you have seen balconies costly. Gandhi class cheap food. Gandhi class beda. We want balcony. I said, no, that is in a movie theatre. But have you gone to Broadway shows? That basically the live performances, concerts. If you gone to any live concerts, first few rows are called VVIP class. Very costly. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 ticket. I'm at 5 rupees, 8 rupees. You know, at the end, the ticket should be. So that is not cheap. So therefore, live performance here. So this seats only are actually expensive. Right. So coming to the last part of capital. One last part of capital would be, one is restrictive matters I told you. That is, if at all, whether you are allowed to make a fresh issue, not allowed to make a fresh issue, check all that, and then dilution. Dilution. Every time the capital is coming in, I hope you know your cap table is changing. The cap table changes wherein the percentage of shareholding is going to change. Pre-issue and post-issue, the percentage will not remain same. Is that okay? Is what you have to ask him. He will say, cash barli. So, you know, from majority shareholder will become minority. Because you are not even saying at what price you are trying to issue those shares. So therefore you have to understand what is the dilution that's going to happen to your capital. These are the discussions we need to have with the client much before we talk about any of these infusions. So capital over, then come to in the journal entry. We said, as per our journal entry was concerned, bank account debit to capital to securities. Bank I have told you, capital also discussed. Now we are talking about securities premium. So let's come to securities premium part. When it comes to securities premium part, what all I should take care? We have to take care of 5627B. Definitely not Companies Act, Income Tax Act. So 5627B is all from Income Tax Act, because thanks to Income Tax Act, now you know 5627B, especially after the agent tax also has been removed now. Any funds that is coming into your company cannot come in at whatever price you want. It's not possible anymore. So a 10 rupee share, let's say. So a 10 rupee share, let's say, Companies Act says there is no limit on premium I can charge. If you look at Companies Act, it doesn't talk about any limit on premium. So a 10 rupee share I can say for 100 rupees. Absolutely no problem. That is okay from the point of view of Companies Act. But what about Income Tax Act? Income Tax Act has an issue. Income Tax Act says I have to find out the fair market value based on Rule 11 UA calculations. Then it says based on the fair market value, if at all you're getting a premium more than the fair market value, it will be deemed to be income from other sources. And I will tax you for it. Now, why did they do this? Coming back to my first example, traffic signal, USA example. So if I take you back to that example, complications. We only complicated slowly. And then as and when some complications happened, they kept on amending the law. What was one of the complications that happened? There was one software company. What the software company did, it rendered one service to a client. Having rendered the client one service, billing was around 1.5 crores. Software companies inging andre 1 crore malbidutte. Now ಏನು ಫೈಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು 500 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಸಿಗಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, right? So but ಅವ್ರು ಏನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ ಅದು okay. So they say okay, they done some ERP implementation. So something they told 1.5 crore he billed. Then the client said, hey, 1.5 crores has come. Then again they have to pay tax because Karchu is only that software programmer, and that fellow anyway comes in Cheddi, one Barina Kondo, right? He'll work, and for them anyway, work from home also is okay. Anywhere they can work from. So therefore, the expenses was very less. Profit was very high, high profitability, huge amount of tax. So I told him, see, you don't have much expenses, but you'll have so much of tax to be paid. He said, oh, da. Okay. Then he realized next time what he should do. He decided, he didn't ask. He made it on decide, oh, Inga, okay, next time we'll take care. Next, another one more client, 1.5 crore billing was there. What he did was, he didn't show it as invoice at all. I said, yo, 1.5 crores you've done rendered service, where is invoice? No invoice. What you did? One share I gave him for 1.5 crores. And he said it's a one share allotted for 1.5 crores. A 1.5 crores journal entry, look at that. Bank account 1.5 crores, capital atrupai. 10 rupees capital, rest is all premium. Full amount premium. I said, why did you do this? Well, no income tax, because it's a capital transaction. It's not a revenue transaction. It's not coming in P&L. It is coming in balance sheet. Aha, ingala idea idiyanta. That is how our 5627B came. I think you understood the background of why this 5627B came. It came because these fellows, instead of treating it as a P&L item, they started to treat it as capital receipt. Then what else to do? The law amended the law. They said, go. If you're getting premium more than the fair market value, then the excess premium what you get will be taxable as income from other sources. So your company, which is the software company, maybe 10 rupees ka share, you can give it for 100 rupees, not for 1.5 crores. That is too much. I'll tax you for the difference. And that's how it all started. It started like that, but now we have reached a stage wherein it's become difficult to collect premium also. We don't know how it has to be done. And then, of course, valuations. So you have valuation also, again, 5627B is there and 11UA valuations are there. That also, because if you leave it for valuation, you know, you will do whatever valuation we want. Yeah, for one tomato also you'll do valuation. I mean, Zomato also will do valuation, right? So irrespective of what it is worth for. So they said we'll create our own 11UA calculations. Of course, there are a lot of amendments in that also. Then angel tax, I think you're all aware of. Previously, the logic was dollars is coming into India, so India is happy. Even if more dollars is coming, maybe my market value of my company is actually 800 rupees, but is willing to give me 1000 rupees. But it's coming in USD. I'm happy because foreign exchange reserves are going to increase. We said it's all right. So if a non-resident is giving me money, no, 11UA, there's no question of 5627B. It's okay, take how much ever you want. But they change the law. Why? There's a world kasi devaga. Dollars we have enough. What expenses you will show? Correct, absolutely possible. What is the expense you will show? 1.5 crores. For earning that income, it's not income. Earning, it's not income, it's capital infusement is what you're showing. Correct. You are treating it as income. What? The capital extra is treated as income. Excess capital. Correct. Premium capital is treated. For earning the premium capital, what is your expense? Auto charges 50 ರೂಪಾಯಿ. ಆಯ್ತಾ, Zoom free meeting ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇವಾಗೆಲ್ಲ Zoom calls free. I hope you understood. Basically, very difficult to show any. What sir is asking is, can I show 57 expense? 56 Income Tax Act is talking about income part. 57 anyway you got admissible expenses. Absolutely, you're right. It's not at all wrong. The question is, how much can you show? How much can you show as an expense? Yeah. You know, satisfaction 50 100. We can show. Sorry. Basically, I'm telling because we are talking about transactions which are in millions. Today, if you see any VC funding, you're talking about minimum of 10 million USD is what is coming in. What expense can I show for that? Very difficult. So here, when you're talking about this, anyway, I'll not get into the income tax part. Company law session, right? We'll not get into income tax, but what you're saying is absolutely correct. You can always show expense. No, absolutely. So then angel tax, then startup registration. This of course is still there. If you're having a startup registration, this is something which we tell the clients, please, I'm sure you also will be telling your clients, if you at least have a startup registration, you will avoid the concept of 5627B, because for a startup entity, what valuation will I do? Startup entity, it starts with loss only. Most of them end with loss also, but it starts with losses. Where is the question of valuation there? Where is the question of telling my fair market value above that? So therefore, for a startup entity, we said if you have a startup registration, then you will not attract 5627B. Therefore, as far as income tax is concerned, that exemption is there. So we have to tell our clients, hey, do you have a startup registration? At least take the startup registration. I think if you're eligible for startup registration, again, go through the DPIIT requirements, right? Yeah, DPIIT registrations there, no? Yes, right. Then we'll come to, one is Income Tax Act. I think we're clear with Income Tax Act part. Come to Companies Act. In Companies Act, it says whenever you're collecting premium, valuation is required, and for that valuation should be from RV. RV means it's not like this. RV, Raja Vijaya Angaladu. So RV here basically means you're registered valuer. So a registered valuer is required. And this is another point which normally is missed. Again, all this we find when we do DDs. Whenever we do due diligences for most of our VC investors, there we find this point also. Board resolution for appointment. Always. Companies Act insists that whenever an RV is appointed for valuation, you're supposed to pass a board resolution appointing him as valuer. That is actually not. Normally for valuations, we don't do any such resolutions. I hope you know. If you want some valuation, you go and ask him, will you do valuation? He'll say, yes, one engagement letter EL is signed. and then invoice is sent and report is over. We don't do any board resolution and all that. But for Companies Act, for RV, it is compulsory that you need to have a board resolution. So please ensure that this is done. Normally it is missed. Then come to FEMA. This is only if there is foreign infusement of funds. Then we are talking about two different people. One is merchant bankers called as MBs, and the other one is chartered accountants certificate. Either an MB can sign or a CA can sign. Then of course, finally it is business valuations. Ultimately, what price you're going to pay for a company is purely a business valuation, right? I'm not talking about income tax now. Income tax has its own valuation. Revenue valuation is there, but I'm telling in general, it's a business valuation. How I decide what should be the price I want to pay for a company is purely a business dynamics. I may use DCF, which is the most common one when you're talking about valuation methodologies, or you will use the Black-Scholes if at all you're talking about options which have to be converted later on and so on. So that is what we will do. So these are the four things. Now I think we clear so many aspects only from one journal entry. Journal entry was simple, but I think we understood from one journal entry what all we can take care only from this one journal entry. I think we are clear. I think overall, I've given you an overall basis of what all we should take care on funding part. Now this was an overview. Now let us go into deeper study now. And let's start with private placement. So now I'm getting into the technical aspect of company law now. Yeah, the private placement part. Now, as far as private placement is concerned, which is defined under section 42. 42 is the most important section for all of us, especially when any funds are coming into my company. 42 is the most important section throughout. Now, if you see what is private placement, now it says private placement means any offer or an invitation to subscribe or issue of securities, it is telling. That means what? It is not restricting itself only to equity, only to preference, or a quasi, which is your convertibles. We call it as your CCPS, yeah, your compulsorily convertible preference shares. Any of those, if you're coming into, we are talking about securities. Therefore, your SERA law, whatever defines securities, everything is covered here. So any securities must come under 42, which means moral of the story, any infusement of funds, 42. This is for me, I call it section 42 as Lord Ganesha in our tradition style. Because whatever, whether I have to do Saraswati Puja, Lakshmi Puja, whatever Puja, first Pratama Puja is for Lord Ganesha. Yeah, Vigna Vinashaka, we do that and then only we do the rest of the things. So we say this is our Ganesha provision. 42, whatever issue you want to do, you have to go for 42 first. And if you see here, down below, the last part, the framework governing issue of specific securities, you've got specifically. 42, I told you, is Lord Ganesha. Apart from that, you've got other sections 62, 55, 71, all Companies Act now. What are these? 62, we're talking about for equity. 55, for your preference shares. 71, for debentures. So whether it is equity, preference, debentures. All three, whether it is 62, 55, 71. So whichever section it is, doesn't matter. You come back to 42. Why? Because 42 says securities. So for all securities, so we always use the word R/W, that is read with. We're trying to read all the other provisions with 42. And 42 is actually the mother provision for all your capital infusements. I think we are clear on this, right? So whichever type of instrument it is, you have to go through this. And therefore, securities is given an SERA, your Securities Contract Regulation Act, which is a very big, I not say big, I'll say exhaustive. It covers absolutely everything. So all types of securities are covered, whether it's derivative, whether it's shares, bonds, debentures, you name it. So therefore, when you say securities, it covers absolutely all of them into the gamut of decision. So I'll not get into this definition. It's very exhaustive definition. It's given from SERA. Now let's get into three aspects of it. Three aspects is before starting the issue, what you should do, during the issue, what you should take care, and post issue also what you should take care. So three stages: pre, during, and post. So let me call on my partner Shri, because she is the one who heads the entire corporate law governance and she knows better. So in fact, before the session started, I was telling in the chairman's cabin saying that yeah, that she heads the largest team, but she's the shortest, right? And then Manjunath gave a very interesting analogy for that. He said she may be the shortest, But all of them have to, when she comes, they have to all put their head down on the height difference, right? Please start. Yeah, just to continue before this, we have a session after the break. After the break, you have a session on CSR. Now that also will be handled by both of us together. So I'll be there. So that you don't go away after lunch. So I'll be there. Please, I am also there. Please stay in. So we will take the session jointly. Right? This session also we're taking jointly. The next session also will take it jointly. Although as per the schedule, it says individually, but I thought we'll take it jointly. That would be better because you'll be bored of seeing my face all the time. So there'll be a change.
I was hoping he'll forget to call me, but he did call. So nice to see quite a lot of them on a Friday afternoon, which means I can see some of my GMCS batchmates. I can see Vishwanath. I can see my partners also. And thank you. I actually wanted them to take a photo. So my partners are taking a photo too. So my session will be where I cannot probably make jokes like what Raja does, but I might tell you some of the practical things which we do at the office. And we have structured it in such a way that he's going to have all the fun part and I'm going to talk all of the little boring parts. So anyway, next lunch is there. So please wait. It will get a little interesting and hungry as we proceed. The slide is interesting. We can probably wait for the graphics to go. So we have told it's a pre-issue compliance. So we are touching upon all of the points, what we have to take care in terms of pre-issue. So before somebody asks you that I'm going to receive the money, then what are you going to do? Gone are those days when people will come to you telling, I have already received the money, what to do? You can't do anything. You just have to make sure that whoever is receiving the money is educated about all of these. So the first one is the mother document. On this, all of us probably know by now, what are we required to do when we are going to get money? Of course, I saw Harsha also somewhere. I missed calling out his name. So these are the people I knew in the crowd, but I'm sure a lot of them know Raja and some of them I know here. So in the important step that we are supposed to follow, check the articles is the most basic important thing. So thumb rule, in anything in Companies Act, what are we required to do? We are supposed to check the articles of association. What exactly in the articles of association? We have some Q&A on that. We will be able to deal with that. So the important thing on the articles, what we need to check is check for restrictions or if there are any special clauses. These two are what needs to draw your attention in terms of all of the sections which Raja referred to. So 42, then 62, 55, 71. If you're thinking that, then you have to check all of these restrictions or any special clauses in the articles. Then again, can we allot shares of what we do not have capital of? No, we have to obviously have capital for us to be able to allot any shares. So the immediate logical step will be sufficient authorized share capital is required. If it is not there, then what are we required to do? We are supposed to increase the authorized share capital. I'm sure all of us here will know what are the forms that we are required to file. SH7 and MGT 14 for special resolution, PAS 3 for allotment of shares. All this you will keep hearing, but the logical steps after checking articles, check for any special clauses, then check if we have any share capital or not. If not, then increase the authorized share capital. After I am able to increase the authorized share capital, because it's a private placement, I am supposed to identify the list of investors. Who are the investors I'm going to allot shares to? I need to have that clarity. That I have to next plan for. They are called the list of allottees or the people for whom I'm going to allot the shares. After I list down the investors that are interested in investing, in parallel, what will I do? I will get the valuation report out. So Raja already told the nexus behind why valuation has come into picture. So here, valuation report is something that is very, very important. Earlier, we used to have that provision in the law which said before 30 days of the EGM, I'm supposed to get a valuation report. Now, whichever day I get the valuation report, it's just that it should be prior to the date I'm allotting the shares. I have to get the valuation report from a registered valuer. This is what we have indicated. Then registered valuer, CA and merchant banker, whole lot of things you will understand in the subsequent slides. But for now, you understand that you need a valuation report and you need it from a registered valuer. then naturally, once you've understood, you have to increase the capital, then you've identified who is the person or who are the people who are going to bring in money. Then logically, what also happens is you're going to get a valuation report. After that is when you are actually going to receive the money. Though these steps can happen in parallel, that is opening the bank account, I can start right at the time I want to understand that I'm going to allot the shares. You can do that, but logically also you need to know that a bank account is required for me to receive the money into the for the share capital. So opening of a bank account is important. Raja, you have anything to add anywhere? Please stop me. So he is my shield. So, sir, yes. Correct. For receiving money of the share application, yes, we have to specify that, because this has to be a separate bank account for receiving share capital specifically. That's a requirement under the law. You're telling whether we have to tell we are receiving shares. Yes, we are receiving capital. Yes, you have to mention that in the resolution. Then only you can tag that to bank account. That's the reason why you need to mention. That's important practice.
It's actually a very important point, because you can't put this money into your regular bank account. Company already has a regular current account, etc. They can't put this money there. Correct. Correct.
Now this is a special time.
Correct. Correct.
So we have to write for receiving the money.
Perfect. So wherein you're right, absolutely right, sir. So what sir is asking is, can I simply pass a regular resolution telling that I'm opening a bank account, or should I pass a resolution specifying that this is for the purpose of 42? Answer is yes. You'll have to specifically say this is for 42, because this has a restriction that it cannot be used for anything else. And unless the allotment is done and I filed the returns, I can't touch this money. So when we pass a resolution also, we specifically mention that. Exactly. Absolutely. You're right.
Thank you, sir. Hi. Yeah, there are quite a few requirements, like before 6 months, then within the 3 months. The law also gives this. In valuation, we have a separate slide which is dealing with all of this. We have a clarity there. You will get this question answered. I'm not doing the trick what Raja told. Genuinely, there is a slide you will, and he's only going to take that session. So pre-issue is done. Now during the private placement process, so pre-issue is 5 steps. The 5 steps is clear. AOA in whatever order. So during the private placement process, what are we required to do? Approval of the offer letter. This is required in the board meeting and the general meeting. So this is where you cannot actually receive the money and go ahead, utilize the money and then come back and do the compliances. It is not possible. For that, this is the important step. So this approval we will give the slides. Ma'am is taking a photo. Anyway, the slides will be hosted on the website. And we have a few checklists and whole lot of things. It will be given.
No, you can still take photo also. Doesn't matter.
And yeah, you can take it with him if you want. So the approval of offer letter is required, and it is done through a board meeting and general meeting. Again, whole lot of steps on this are there in the subsequent slides. In just my 3rd slide onwards, it is going to start, where we are going to talk about which is the form, what is the provision under law, what is the time limit, all of those things will be there. But for simplicity, approval of offer letter is done. And wherever there is a special resolution, form MGT 14 is required. It's like a tail follows, right? So with special resolution, what is the annexed thing that you are mandatorily required to do? You are required to file the form MGT 14. That is given under the rule 14. This is for issue of shares. Then what happens after I file the MGT 14 for the special resolution? I actually circulate this PAS4. Circulate PAS4 is, this is the offer letter. It's called the private placement offer letter. That offer letter, I will go and circulate to all of the shareholders after I have filed the form MGT 14. This circulation of PAS4 has to be to the identified set of investors only. So in the pre-issue compliance also, we spoke about the identified set of investors. Here, you are going to make that offer only to the identified set of people. That's why we call it the private placement. After I circulate the pass-4, I move into receiving the acceptance of offer. The people to whom I have circulated the offer letter, they have to convey their acceptance. So that step also is important, and within the time specified in the offer letter. So one of them was asking me a question earlier, telling what is this time limit before which somebody has to accept. Actually speaking, under the law, there is no time limit. There is no time limit given. Only in the pass-4, in one of the points when you are filling, you are required to tell what is the time limit. And this time limit also, typically we specify something like 60 to 90 days, which is a right practice, because by then you will know money is going to come or not. See, we've had this issue where the promoters are very excited telling money is coming. I have a term sheet signed, or almost it is signing for 3 crores. You have to go ahead, issue the offer, all of those things they will do. But then as and when advanced stages of discussion happen, they realize that no, the money is not coming in, but we have passed the MGT 14, we have done the special resolution, all of those things happen. But as a practice, what we do is 60 days to 90 days is what you are required to keep for this receiving the acceptance of offer. After the time limit is over, then I receive the money and then I do the allotment. Receiving money is most important. Actually, verify bank statement for receipt of money. We have actually, it should be in bold and underline and caps. The font size also should be more. There are people who go ahead and do the allotment without actually receiving the money. Then the onus is on the professional. We have to make sure that the money is received and then we do the allotment. Board approval for allotment also, again, we do a board resolution for allotting the shares. This is in terms of the private placement process. So again, 5 steps are there even in the private placement process. The post allotment compliance is after all the hard work is done. This is where MCA is currently troubling us. We have 2 shifts in the office now. People who are coming in at 9:30 and then staying till evening, and then people who are coming at 3 and staying till midnight to file the forms. Unfortunately, it has become like that. But post allotment compliance, we have to meet. This is filing of pass-3 clearly within 15 days. All other forms of ROC is usually typically 30 days. This is one exception where people are dying to utilize the money that they have received. And this has to happen within 15 days. CHG 9 is in case of debentures, secured debentures. We'll see a little more on that a little later. And I can utilize the money, bold, underline, caps, star, everything is after the filing of pass-3 only. So I can see Balaji sir also now. So utilization of money only after filing of pass-3 is I have to utilize the money and then only, sorry, pass-3 I have to file and then only utilize the money. Issue of duly stamped share certificates. This has to happen within 60 days of allotment. So each state has a different provision under the stamp law. Ensure that this is met, because CP, one of the conditions when you typically go for due diligences is they ask for these stamp share certificates. And now in Karnataka earlier that franking and notary is those things we could do. Now it's only through a stamp paper you have to buy and you should do it. In fact, Delhi and Haryana have very difficult procedures where you need to make an application, an online application, then you're able to get the stamping, and they will not allow you to stamp the shares if your earlier allotments have not been stamped. All those things are going to be there. And going for an adjudication if you have not stamped is 10 times the penalty of the actual stamp duty. That's quite a difficult process. So this issue of duly stamped share certificates, please make sure you do it correctly and you hand over the copies to the client. You have a copy, all of that, please do. Then the subsequent step or the last step will be to update your statutory register. So this is as far as all of the steps are concerned, pre, during and post. Any of the doubts here? Yes, sir. Within 15 days of? Yes, correct. Within 15 days of receipt of money is what is mentioned, is it? That is 15 days of allotment, receipt, allotment. Correct. Allotment is correct. Okay. So coming to the actual points on, yes, sir. Correct. So identified set of investors is mandatory. No, the pass 4, what you do has to mention the, no, but correct. Those are the people who have accepted the offer. Correct.
Actually, parents told the kid saying that, hey, your birthday is there, so you can celebrate your birthday. And the kid said, okay, I want to celebrate my birthday. So I want to treat my friends. So parents said, okay, you can take your best friends for a party. He said, okay. And then finally he comes with a big bill. He said, how many of you went? No, I took only my best friends. How many? 600 people. I said, 600 people best friends, sir. Whatever is there in the list of my contacts. So now the problem is like this, sir. No, the point is this. When we talk about friends and family, we still don't know who is a friend and who is a family because it's not defined in law, isn't it? So therefore, I am now barging on to the situation of public issue. You know what I'm talking about. So when I'm simply writing friends and family, that means my offer is more or less like a public issue now, because I have not specified anybody. And as a private company, the basic premise of a private company is I can't make a public offer. I think now we are in sync with the same logic. So that's the only reason why they say you can't mention it. I understood the practical difficulties, sir, what you're telling. Absolutely, there's a practical difficulty if you're not sure about somebody, because for a startup entity, especially like what you said, it's a pain for them because every time they have to incur this expense every time. Let's say today you found only 2 people, and next after 3-4 months you found another 2 people. You have to go through the same process all over again, because in the first issue those names were not there. So you're absolutely right about the problem involved, but unfortunately we don't have a remedy by telling I'll just write it as friends and family, because it tantamounts to a public issue. And we can't do a private company cannot do a public issue.
Raja, I have one add on here.
Please.
I want to ask you only the question.
Oh.
So now we have within allotment, within 15 days of allotment, I'm supposed to file pass 3. So my receipt of money comes from different investors and different points. Then how do I file? I combine everything and file one.
Correct. Perfect. Perfect.
Allot the shares and then file. Thank you for that.
Goody.
So when is alteration of AOA required? So if AOA does, this was one of the pre-issue compliance what we spoke of. In that we have a few questions. If AOA does not authorize for private placement and preferential issue of shares, then I'm supposed to alter my AOA. After allotment, again, sometimes I'm supposed to alter the AOA because the shares SHA would contain certain different terms and conditions, which I'm supposed to incorporate into my AOA. That is why also I'm supposed to alter my AOA. 2 steps or 2 instances when I'm required to alter my AOA. Whether SHA, then SSA or SPA, whatever all those terms that we come across, is it mandatory under the Companies Act? In fact, it's a new age process and procedures which the investors and the law firms have devised. Under the Companies Act, there is no specific references to all these. It is an investor practice requirement. What is the validity of the offer letter in the PAS 4? Like I mentioned earlier, the validity per se is not there under the law, but we are supposed to disclose in the explanatory statement, which is annexed to the notice of the general meeting. So when I give a notice to the general meeting, in that I am supposed to annex PAS 4 and in which the offer shall be proposed in the PAS 4 as well. So there is special, however, Raja, I want you to take this. On the validity of the offer letter, we were thinking of a practical case.
we had a situation wherein we make an offer. If you see Indian Contract Act, which talks about offer and acceptance, correct? First there has to be an offer and then there's an acceptance. Now let's say I'm making an offer. Now the question is, what is the time limit? So this may have a little help for you, especially to solve that question what you had. This can come to your help. You can have an offer letter, but of course that other problem where you don't know the name of the people, that we cannot help. But here for the offer letter, what it says is, should I give them only 10 days time as an offer? That means the validity period of the offer letter, 15 days time, 1 month time. So how long can I keep the offer letter open? I'm on the assumption that I know the people, right? Who are the people? But how long can I keep the offer letter open? Now, if you look at the law is silent. Now, Companies Act is silent about what should be the period for which I should keep the offer letter open as such. And because it is silent on how long I can keep the offer letter open, I actually have a longer duration of keeping it open. So can I keep it for years together? That's not possible, because indirectly we say your entire transaction should get closed. Whatever you start should get closed within 12 months. So which means indirectly I can have an offer letter going on for 12 months. Although practically we don't do that. We give a limited period of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Different companies tell us different numbers. They tell us, hey, give 90 days time, give 60 days time. We said, okay, no problem at all, because law is silent on this. So we can always give a longer duration of offer letter, keeping it open. That is possible. But again, that unfortunately the other point stays, that is, first I should know to whom I'm offering. That is, it should be to a specific person only. The specified people should be known, but I can keep the offer letter open for a long time for them. So they may say, I want 3 months to decide. Suppose he says, hey, three months I need time. Then no problem, put the offer letter, put his name and give him the offer letter with 3 months time. One more say, no, I want actually 4 months time. No problem, put his name, give him the offer letter saying that everybody has 4 months time. But at least in that time, you can still decide whether to take or not to take. They have that much of time to decide. So that leeway is there. You don't have to say 15 days, 1 month and so on. You can have a longer offer letter period. That's what, indirectly there's a 12 months limit. Because we say that whatever issue you're making, that resolution itself has a 12 months validity. Whenever you're going for any infusement of funds, automatically your offer letter also has a limit of 12 months, because everything has to get over in that time. Actually, what has happened is, in fact, in one of the cases, it so happened that we wanted to extend, but ROC said, you start the process again. That means one more shareholders meeting, one more special resolution, and then start again. That means this is deemed to be abandoned. You have to abandon the old one and then start again, which is as good as renewal, but it has to be through again shareholders resolution again. Yeah, 8 months to 12 months you can give, maximum 12 months. Correct.
And one more thing that's going to happen, sir, with this open offer, I can't again do one more offer.
That is the
So I have to close this offer to be able to make a new offer. So that's the reason that time limit automatically will be earlier of everything.
So practical issue wise, because the law is very clever. If one issue is going on, I can't start one more issue. Like what sir asked, let us say I've already given 6 names. Then 7th fellow came. So in this first resolution, only 6 people's name were there. 7th friend name was not there. Now, until I close this offer, that means by allotment, get the money, close it, file all the returns, I can't take the 7th fellow at all. And that's the unfortunate part there. That you can do. You can definitely withdraw the previous offer, pass a resolution, and again start the process fresh by telling all 7. Definitely possible.
But suppose they have given offer,
It's an offer, right? Whether they accept or not, it's okay, just an offer. There's no mandate to accept. No, that is not. When 7% is coming, there should have been an offer for him, because it was not there. 6 you have offered, 5 you have accepted, take that 5, close, and then start again for the new one.
So when to circulate the pass for, a company shall issue.
Sir, I hope you understood the logic why we are telling this. I know it will be, for practically we may feel why for that one more fellow, one more why procedure, but I think we are clear, because private company definition will go for a toss. Because private company definition says that you can't give it to anybody unknown. So I can't keep adding names later. So that becomes as good as a public offer. That is the reason. No, if you have, that is the problem, no? If you have given time, you have to wait for the time to lapse. Because correct. So you have to wait for the time to lapse. because that offer is still open for him. So he can still file a case telling that you have given me an offer and you can't in between withdraw. Right? Unless you made that clause also in your offer letter saying that it is so and so or earlier time as decided by the board, whichever is earlier. If you told an offer letter telling my offer is still 3 months or an earlier time based on the resolution of the board, whichever is earlier, then it's left to you because that is my offer. I think, am I clear, sir? Yeah, thanks.
So when to circulate the offer, it's after the special resolution or the board resolution has been filed, then only I'm supposed to do. Why or board resolution is mentioned is because of debentures. So otherwise for equity preference, so basically you have to understand special resolution is required in shares. Whether the offer can be made to other than identified investors, so can the offer be renounced to the others? So if I'm doing it to other than identified investors, it is going to become a public issue. It is not going to be a private issue in that case. So I have to make sure that I give it to only the select group of people who have been identified by the board. That is important. The identified investors are only going to get the offer. And the private placement offer and application shall not carry any right of renunciation. That is not possible under this private placement option.
See, again, we are coming back to the same issue. In rights issue, we know we can renounce it, but that is under 62(1)(a). But when it comes to 42, renunciation right is not there. That means at least to overcome the problem, right? Saying that I don't know his name, for the time being, I'll give it to Mr. X and tell him if you don't want, you renounce it to Y. Unfortunately, that option also is not there. So they say that it has to be only to that person. He has to accept or reject over. He can't even renounce it in favor of Mr. Y. I've given it to X, but he can't give it to renounce it in favor of Y. That renunciation option also is not there in 42. Only to that person only. We can't even renounce it in favor of somebody. Rights issue you can, not for private placements.
So we have to write both the X and Y.
Yeah, in your list you have to write whether they accept or not. It's okay. You can at least put their names and say, saying that we are offering to these people.
It is a board identified investors list. Yes, sir. You can do for resident investors.
You can do that.
I'll come to that actually. That's very interesting. When I come to 62, we're now in 42. What sir is asking is on 62, saying that I make a rights offer. The difference is this, rights offer is always to existing shareholders. So we make a rights offer to existing shareholders, and in the rights offer, we know we have got 3 rights: right to accept, right to reject, right to renounce. So the most easiest route, which is suggested by most of the professionals also, is this only. They tell 42 bedwe beda. Don't even touch 42, that is private placement route, because it's separate bank account, then that offer letter, and then specifying their names. And until you have filed everything, you can't use that money. Lot of conditions are there. None of them are there in rights. If you see 62(1)(a), 62(1)(a) does not put any of such conditions. There's no need of a separate bank account. There's no need to worry about all these stories, because anyway it's given to existing shareholders. So the simplest route that is always adopted, what we have seen from many years now, is advice given by professional is don't go for 42, that is private placement, simply go for 62, that is right shares. So that simply offer it to existing shareholders, and if that existing shareholder does not want, he'll anywhere renounce it to XYZ, whomsoever name is required.
Allah, yeah, we are coming to that. He's coming to it.
So this was followed by most of them. See, as long as only 1 or 2 was doing this, REC also was quiet. Madli paravilla, ROC, RD, they were all quiet. Madli paravilla. Now this is like how I told you, traffic. Now when everybody started to violate, there is no value for the red light signal only. So they said, again the camera. I said, let me now put camera also along with the light, along with the policemen and all that. Now ROC, this is not law. This is not law, what I'm going to tell you now, but this is the ROC's actions, what is happening now. What ROC is now taking an action is, he is using the Supreme Court verdict of substance over form, which in audit also we have been hearing the word of substance over form. What they're telling is, you have made a rights offer to an existing shareholder. So let us say you got 10 existing shareholders. To the 10 existing shareholders, you made a rights offer. But the one who took the shares were 11 to 20. That means you made an offer to 1 to 10, but the people who took it was 11 to 20. In the sense, none of them took it. They all renounced it in favor of somebody else, all renunciations. And that 11 to 20 took it. Now, enough of notices are coming now from ROC telling that this is a way to avoid 42. He's telling you're doing this as a means to avoid 42 because the intention of 62(1)(a) was to offer it to existing shareholders. And now he has put his own logic, not in law, but his own logic is even if you renounce, this is not in law, but he has created this point. He says, even if you renounce it to the existing shareholders. In the sense, I am one of the existing shareholders. I got the offer. I still have a right to renounce, but I should renounce it to another existing shareholder, not to some outside. This is ROC's interpretation, and they've given enough of notice. Of course, we have to fight it out. We don't have any judgment on this as to who is right, who is wrong. It's only a fight going on.
But ROC is right.
But ROC says the substance over form. Then then you can always 42 becomes redundant, and he's got a logic. Yes, sir. Come again.
ROC is right.
Judgment has come now. Correct. That is the next option. So what he's telling this, you allot the shares to existing shareholders. See, they will always come out with a way. Right. But the problem is the value involved and the transaction value is involved. So if it's a small transaction, it's right. Like what sir is adding to what you said, sir. He's selling stamp duty again. Then again valuations. Again you're hit with 56 to 10. No more 56 to 7B. 56 to 10 will come into picture because of your the lack of consideration, gift transactions under income tax act. So other implications also starts into picture. Yeah, correct. We are happy. We'll get valuation report extra. Correct. But otherwise, that is the only other option that is that. Again, a lot. Then they can do a transfer.
Okay. Another thing we can do is existing shareholders can transfer shares,
That
and
they can.
then to the
That
to
amount is
whoever they
absolutely.
want to allot, and then again one share only you can transfer. So whole lot of logistics around it. What are investors' consents or affirmative vote items? So there will be these investor right items we are required to follow. Like I have seen in this Adiga's hotel chain where Mr. Adiga, if he is present only, then any meeting can happen. So like that, some crazy affirmative rights might be there. Please ensure that you follow it. Then what is the validity of the special resolution? We already saw it, 12 months from the date of special resolution. So stamp duty is a little complicated, and the state list and entry list, all of it is there. Raja is onwards now.
This is again what we find is again during a legal due diligence, we find this in most of the entities not checked. What happens is, one is the stamp duty. Stamp duty again, if you see what the law says, the constitution says stamp duty should be according to the state subject when it comes to issue. So we come to the state. So we'll talk about Karnataka stamps. And Karnataka stamps, they're given the percentage, that and all is okay. I'm not worried about that. But the problem is after this, if you see below that, if you have an SSA, that is a share subscription agreement, then you're supposed to pay extra 200 rupees for that agreement. That is normally missed. And as if that is not enough, in that agreement, if there's one indemnity clause, another 200 rupees you have to pay extra. And most of the times we find that one transaction they would have done correctly, stamp duty, but indemnity clause will always be there in most of the agreements, and they would have not paid that extra 200 rupees. Or just for this 200 rupees, 400 rupees kind of issues, everything gets stuck telling that invalid agreement, again go for adjudication, again 10x fight with him and get the entire regularized. So this is all unwanted. But so it's always what I tell is when it comes to stamp duty, just ensure that you talk to the right advocates who are there, who know about the stamp duty, and ensure the stamp duties are paid correctly, because all small amounts, but it may make a big difference at the end of the day when some transfers are happening, especially by the time of due diligences. So these are the numbers I've given down below saying that if you have a share subscription, then you better ensure. You can, because if you see all of them, finally you should have paid that duty. The requirement, you should have paid the duty. As long as you pay the duty, doesn't matter. Yes?
But in fact, stamp duty go by what the lawyers tell.
Yeah, that's what we always. Again, do you need a separate bank account like what we discussed in the beginning of the session? We definitely need a separate bank account. The existing current account, what you have for the business cannot be used for private placement. You have to create a separate bank account, very clearly telling that this bank account is not for regular business transactions. This account is only for getting this money, and only after I have allotted and filed the forms, then only I will use this money. That also is a prerequisite. Unless and I've allotted and filed the forms, I can't even use this money. That should be very clear. Can a company allot securities for consideration other than cash? We have got 62(1)(c) there, which talks about saying that it can be for cash or other than cash, and all provisions are there. But in 42, we always say don't do it, because 42 is getting linked with here. We're talking about a bank account and etc. That means where is the question of other than cash? Cash, what I want to understand is this. Suppose there is some property which is coming into the company, and as a consideration for, if you know in past 3, you have got for cash or for consideration other than cash, so that you get the respective valuations done for whatever asset that is coming into the company, and then you can allot. But only thing is, you'll also attract 62(1)(c), which talks about preferential allotment. Technical, but from a practical aspect, just that we have to ensure that you get the valuation for what value they're giving it. That's all it is. Otherwise, you're allowed to do it for other than cash also, because everybody need not bring in cash. They can bring in IPRs. If you're having intangible assets, then you do a valuation of intangibles, and then you can allot shares based on that also. This is what we are telling. This is the most important part. Many companies start using the funds. They can't use the funds unless and until they are filed. Where did I go? Yeah. And until they filed past 3, you can't touch the funds. So keep the money in the separate account, and after filing only it can be done. Balaji, did you raise your hand? Whatever is the, I'm not very keen on that. I think it is 0.1, because as we said, lawyers. For transfer or for issue? Issue, what is the price? I don't know, because I am not sure. I don't want to comment on that. 0.1 is correct. Okay, it is 0.1 is correct, it seems, because as we said, we go by lawyers. We tell whatever the lawyer says, we'll go by that. So I'm not an expert on that part, but I think 0.1 is okay. Yes. Yeah, because for transfer it is different, sir. Yeah, for issue it is 0.1. I think that is correct. You had a doubt?
Some amendment happened in 2019. So I think what sir is referring to is prior to it. This is the latest one, sir. Old one, is it? But madam also. Yeah, because that slide we took from a lawyer only. That's why I was confident that it is correct.
No, if it is wrong, I'll sue the lawyer. Yes, sir. Well, you had a doubt.
Stamp duty for transfer.
Acha. But this is only, this is right. Fine. Yeah, so I think we're clear on this also. Don't use the money. Again, many cases we have seen company takes the money, uses it off much before filings are done. So you have to wait for the filing that I told you, solar system. After that only we can use. Then come to the next aspect, that is the payment for subscription to security shall be made from the bank account of the person subscribing. This is one big story. Always confusion. I have made an offer to Mr. A saying that, hey, if you want, you can take the shares of my company. I have to ensure that the money has come from the bank account of Mr. A. The money cannot come from the bank account of Mr. B. So if I'm offering shares to Mr. A, money also must come from A. I'll tell you what are the issues we faced in office. One of the clients said that we are making a private placement, and they said the offer is to XYZ company, one company, let's say XYZ. XYZ is the name of the company. We said, okay, we prepared all the resolutions, filed everything saying XYZ. We saw the bank statement also, because we wanted proof that whether money is coming from the right source. Bank statement also, when we saw the bank statement of our client, it said money received from XYZ. It was telling XYZ. We said everything is okay, and we went ahead with all the processes, filed everything. Later on, they're coming and telling, this is not XYZ garments exports, it is XYZ granites export. And because in the bank statement only so much is visible. Bank statement fully is not visible. Aste can't see the XYZ. Now they're telling it's a group company. It did not come from XYZ cements, it came from XYZ granites, something like that, some entity. We got stuck there. Now the whole issue went for a toss. then again abandon the whole thing, cancel, then take back everything and then say that all thing has been written off. Unnecessary complication. So look at the issue now. Now we are like banks now, KYC. So when they're talking about from the right bank account, in that also you have to check whether the money is coming from the correct name. So XYZ, because group companies have same names, followed by change of words, right after that. So we need to ask for the full name correctly and see whether the money has come from the same account. So now we started one more process in our checklist in office. What we added one more in the checklist is we need a confirmation from the receiver that he has only sent this money from this account. So because our bank account, what I'm not able to see full name, I can only see part of the name. So I think we are clear on that. Then the question came up, what about joint accounts? If joint shareholders are there, then from which bank account it should come? Correct half, jointly it will come. It's not practically possible. So the law said you can go by first name. That means in the joint shareholders, we normally have the first name concept. So whosoever is the first name, if the money is coming from that first name, it is good enough. We can take it from the first name. Now this is interesting point. Can the offer price be different to the valuation price? So let us say we have done a valuation and we have told, okay, for this particular share, valuation is, let us say we have told 10 rupee share valued at 150 rupees. So let's say valuation report says 150 rupees. That means 10 rupee share, you can give it at 150. Now, if you see what rule 13 is telling, it says the price shall not be less than the price determined on the basis of valuation report. That means if my valuation report is telling 150 rupees per share, first question, can I give it for 140? No, I can't give. Why? Because rule 13 very clearly says cannot be less. Because my report is telling 150. Okay, can you give it for 160? Answer is no. Because Income Tax Act I'm hit. We discussed at the beginning. Income Tax Act says, so Companies Act is telling it's a floor price. We call it as a floor price. Whereas Income Tax Act is telling it's a cap price. How? Because Income Tax Act is telling if I collect more than the market value, that excess will be treated as 56 to 7B. So I'm hit there also. So now what has happened? Yes. Come again?
Issue and pay the tax.
You are a government supporter, you know. So he seems to be a government supporter telling that what is there? Give it and pay the taxes, Anta, right? So
No, I was just injecting only. The reason is that still it is not that it is restricting, but only thing is there is a tax for it. So.
correct. What happens practically is not like that. No, at least I don't know practically which client has told me, tax anta. Clients have only told me other way around. Why you didn't tell me before that there will be a tax implication of this? Because everybody wants a structure which is tax efficient. Absolutely. What Balaji sir is trying to tell is there's no prohibition. You're not prohibited from giving from 160, 200, etc. You're most welcome to issue it at that price as long as you're willing to show the differential as the tax. So what he's trying to explain is there's no prohibition. So you're absolutely right.
See, the reason why I was telling is not increasing it substantially, but sometimes the valuation report, the value gives with lot of decimals. So just to round it off, we do it so that things will be easier while doing the rest of the things. So even if you add some amount, it doesn't make much difference.
And that's left to the client to decide. But what I agree with your point, saying that there's no mandatory restriction. You're most welcome to give it at a higher price, provided you're okay to pay the differential taxes.
30% of the amount. 20%.
No, what he's saying is because of decimal rounding off, if there's a very small negligible change, that should be okay, is what he's saying.
But the startup that anyways in the loss.
Extra point. Balaji sir, he's telling anyway startup entity loss though. Which will get set up only, it's okay. So the tax implication will not be there. Correct. Absolutely. I think we are clear on this. Yeah, there's no prohibition for a higher price, but we have to be careful with tax implications. This is the preferential allotment will come to 62 when we come there. I think we have not updated correctly there. Then who can issue the valuation report? I think we've already said about this point, saying that VR to be obtained from VR is valuation report. Valuation report has to be obtained from a registered valuer, right? I think that we are already clear on this. I'll come to some other discussion on the entire part of valuations. Somebody had asked me one doubt there. Yeah. Full valuations I'll discuss another coming down later. Then what is the maximum number of investors to whom shares can be offered? I think we all know 200. I think sir also just mentioned that when I gave an example of 600 friends, he said no, 200 only possible. And correct. So maximum is only 200 is what you can make an offer to. You can't give it to more than 200. A company has an ongoing private placement for issue of 1000 equity shares. Now let's say, this is an example I'm taking. One company has started one process for issuing for 1000 shares. Now here are the questions for you. In such period, when the company is ongoing with issue of 1000, can the company now issue same class of equity shares? That is apart from this 1000 which is still going on. I have not yet closed the issue. Can I go ahead and give same class of equity shares to another set of, let us say another 10, 20, maybe another 10, 20 shares other than 1000 shares? Or can I give preference shares? Maybe I'm giving equity here, there I want to give preference, here I'm giving equity, can I give preference? Third, can I give a different class of equity shares? So what do you think is possible, what is not possible? Anybody?
The different class, I think it's possible.
Different class may be possible, okay. Yes? They have to approve, therefore, this is possible, not possible? Different class. Oh, am I clear with the question? Question is when the 42 issue is going on. Sorry? Sorry?
Different class is also possible.
Preference shares is also possible. Okay. Yes, madam. Nothing is possible. Nothing is possible because so 42 talks about securities. Securities means absolutely whatever it is. And we also told one dialogue just now that when one issue is going on, another issue cannot happen at all, is what we said, correct? Now let's read what the provision says. So as per section 42 bracket 5, it says no fresh issue. You see, no fresh offer. No fresh offer or invitation shall be made unless the allotments within the respect to any of these offers already made have been completed. So unless I've completed whatever I've started, or invitation has been withdrawn, like what we said, we can withdraw the entire offer or abandoned by the company. So unless I complete it, withdraw it or abandon it, there's nothing I can do. Are we clear on this? This is what the law is telling under section 42(5). That means if I've started one, until I close the first one, I can't parallelly start anything, whether same class, whether different class, whether equity, preference. One more time. Correct. Absolutely, absolutely. The moment you withdraw, you can start off. No. You can do a meeting right now, one resolution to withdraw, and the next resolution to make a fresh issue. Absolutely. But you have to withdraw first. Company has borrowed loans from directors. Correct. Converting the loan into share capital. Will it be considered as a private placement? Now there is an issue, correct? No, issue means there's an issue of shares. Okay, let me put it this way. So when there is an issue of shares here, now you have to tell me these directors whose loan you're converting, are they existing shareholders? Because directors may be a shareholder, may not be a shareholder, but practically most of the time directors are shareholders. I mean, practically most of the time they are the shareholders. So if you say they're already existing shareholders, I think you already got the answer. You will not go for 42, you'll go for 62 as a rights issue. Correct? So that possibility is there. You don't have to wait for 42 as such. Am I clear, sir? Correct. Now, if he's not at all a shareholder, let's say he's not a shareholder at all. In that case, what do we do? Then you're talking about converting a loan into capital. Then you're talking about 62 bracket 3. No 62(1), 62(2), 63(3), which talks about all loans getting converted into capitals, which is more or less like your convertibles, what you issue for all the convertibles. Convertibles also have the same logic, isn't it? Let's say I'm giving a convertible debenture, which is a loan today, tomorrow it will become. So that will come into those situations. Or you can come back to 42, no problem, but there is a problem with 42. The problem with 42 is money has to be received But here you're talking about already received long back, correct? So you can't use 42. That is where we have, thankfully, the law has created 62(1)(c), which is called preferential allotment. And if you read what is preferential allotment, it's as good as 42 only, but they've added the extra dialogue saying that it can be for consideration other than cash. So in your case, this transaction is called as a consideration other than cash because it's a loan. No. So we have to be very careful here. This is something which, no, sir. I understood, sir, what you're telling, because I also had made this mistake before. So absolutely. So this is something which we all have to be very clear. So let's understand like this. There's a loan. Loan is existing. Let us say one loan was there from the last 2 years. Now in the third year, I want to convert the loan into capital. That means I want to issue shares instead of repayment. Now, when you're filing pass 3, I want an answer from you. When you're filing pass 3, will you file it as allotment for cash or will you file it as allotment for other than cash? That's all. There's no valuation because it's a debt. Debt has anyway face value only as valuation. Correct? But the point is it's called other than debt. So it's called other than cash. You cannot call it as allotment for cash. It has to be, why? Come back to Caro. Audit. If you come back to Caro and your audit, it says in your pass 3, wherever it is filed as allotment for cash, you are supposed to check the bank account to see at the time of allotment whether money has come into the bank account. The answer is no, because this money has come 2 years back as a loan. So it is not at all called as allotment for cash. It has to be treated as allotment for consideration other than cash. So even in your pass 3, you have to file it as other than cash. You'll have to come under 62(1)(c), which is called as preferential allotment, right? And again, like what sir said, valuation will come into picture, but it will anyway be at the, for a debt, there is no problem of valuation, but company has a valuation. For conversion ratio, we need to have a valuation for the conversion ratio. Whether it's going to be 1:1 or 1:2 depends on valuation of the company. Doesn't matter. If you have an agreement in the beginning itself that you're converting this into capital at a later point of time, it's a convertible instrument. In that case, 62(3) says special resolution should have been passed at the time of taking the loan itself. In that case, right? If it was already known to you in the beginning itself. I think I'm clear on this. So Balaji is giving us an answer also for that. Yes, sir. You can give up the answer.
No, it's not the answer, it's the question.
Oh, okay. But you know
Many
the
of
answer.
the cases where I had discussed with many of the professional friends,
Hmm.
they have a difference of opinion that if the loan has been taken with a condition that it has to be returned, say on a later date, if the lender says that you can allot me the shares, they say it's not possible. So your view on this?
Okay. So what is your view, sir? Let me first understand so that I know whether I should conflict or not. What is your view, sir?
Conservatively, no. Otherwise, possible, yes.
Okay.
So your expert views on this?
Yeah, expert anilla. I can tell you what we understand from the reading of the law. 42 will not be possible. That is why most of them tell you not possible. That is the reason, because 42 does not allow you to do this. But I always feel that is the reason why they added 62(1)(c). So if you see what is 62(1)(c), it talks about preferential allotment. And preferential allotment, very clearly it has been told, it can be for cash or consideration other than cash. Now this is for us other than cash only, because pass 3 also I'm filing it as other than cash. So definitely I'm allowed. And that is why in 62(1)(c) they've insisted that it starts with a valuation report for your conversion ratio. That is, at what rate you're going to convert has to be a valuation report basis only. So therefore, according to me, under 62(1)(c) you can do it. But the problem is many people pass a resolution as 42. That they should not do. Correct. They should do it as a 62(1)(c) provision. It's possible. Yes. Is that okay? All questions clear? Good. Yeah, that is theoretically possible. Theoretically, definitely possible, sir. But practically, kasilla. I mean, already thinbati devi. Andre, see the reason why I'm not able to give back the money and asking for converting it into shares is because kasilla. I mean, practical issue, but what you're telling is absolutely right. If I can repay and then take it again, absolutely that's the best way to do it, if I can do that. Yeah, I'm coming back to this. I'll tell you where this point I feel it is possible. Madam Ji, you told no, it is not possible. Simply, this is like one KBC question as say. This law says, 42.5 says, if your no fresh offer, etc., shall be made unless the allotments with the respective to any offer made earlier has been completed. That means if it is ongoing, you cannot do it. Correct? No. Ilon hitchide. What is the teach under 42.5? No fresh offer or invitation under this section shall be made. Okay. Okay. I will not make it under this section. That's all no you want. I should not make an offer under Madala. I'll go to 62. So for all this, I'll say in all the three scenarios, if the rights issue means answer will be yes, because rights issue will become 62. So therefore, even if I have an existing private placement going on, but my existing shareholders say I want to take, I don't have to wait for closure of 42. I can still go ahead with 62. So to make it very easy, I'll put it this way. Private placement is going on with my friends, but offer is not yet closed. The transactions are still going on. But suddenly my own shareholders, that means my own shareholders tell me, hey, I also want to take it. For them, I can start off with 62. I think I'm clear on this. Yes. Yeah. Oh, ready na? You know, time back on the. Hoda? Very good. Fantastic. Oh, you're going to check? Okay. As a value addition, now I already spoken on 42. I've also told you about 62, that is about rights shares. And I told you the ROC controversy, whatever is there. I don't have to touch upon 55 and 71 because one is for preferential. I don't have to tell the theory about 20 years for redemption or the stories are all not required. Debentures anyways alone, I think we know about those parts. I would like to spend the next 2-3 minutes on telling you practically how we do it in office scenarios. So always ensure that there's a checklist for your team so that they know what all they have to check when they're doing this transaction and what should be the flow chart. Because what happens to the team, see, we will not be sitting and doing all the transactions. We'll delegate it to our team. So from that aspect, I would like to show you two slides, one on flow chart. Can you just go to the flow chart and the checklist both, please? Now, this is the flow chart that we generally use to as a KT, as the KT basically knowledge transfer to our team members, telling them, then saying they just follow this flow chart, saying that what as to at least for your team, they should know how they are supposed to take up the process. So give them this flow chart. You'll take only a few minutes to explain this flow chart to your team members, right? So tell them that this is what they're supposed to do. Tell them first check the provision of AOA, check whether there is an SHA or an SSA, see whether you have a valuation report, ensure board meetings are done. And if it's AOA talks about 7 days notice and all those things for the board meeting, ensure all that is taken care. Right, for shareholders meeting, if some 21 days time is required, do that also. And then have that pass 4, then MGT 14 has to be filed. So the entire flow, I've given the entire flow here. I'll share all these files with you. So even if it's not there, you can take it from my website, vijayaraja.com. It'll be there, right? At any point of time, if you go to vijayaraja.com website also, you'll get it from there also. You can take it from there also, doesn't matter, right? So this will be there. So this is for you to give it as a knowledge transfer to your team. This is one part to explain them over how the flow happens. The other part is the checklist. So I'll just show you the checklist here. So if you see the checklist, this is also good for if you have a checklist telling this is what you should do. If you see that, if you just increase the font a little, maybe I have become old. Yeah. Again, if you see, we're talking about yes, no remarks. So if your team can start filling up, if your team starts filling up, okay, this I've seen, or if they don't know, they'll say they left it blank. So for you, your job becomes a little more easier. So when they come to you, they know, okay, these points they left it blank, they didn't know what to do. Then you also know what you have to ask the client. Hey, these are the remaining data which is left from the client. So if you see the flow is full the same thing. I've told right from meetings, notices for the meetings, offer letters, quorum, very important because sometimes, you know, they may say that this particular investor must be there in the quorum. before you take for any dilution, because this new issue goes for a dilution. So he must be there means you have to see whether he's there. Then attendance of the meetings. All this normally is missed. So ensure that this checklist is followed. Then the chairman who is there in the meeting, the minutes of the meeting, like last time we saw no minutes, also notices have come for not maintaining minutes. Then whether allotment has been done within 60 days, it's been completed, you have filed all the forms. So this checklist, if you can give it to your team and say, to ensure that this entire checklist is being also followed. If some point is not required, you'll say not applicable. Then this point is not applicable, but at least there is a checklist. Then to suit your respective office requirements on your client, you may add something or delete something to the checklist so that it becomes foolproof for you when you have to do a check. Otherwise, you don't know how your team is working. See, the whole problem is with the penalties. Can you take me through the penalties, so the last part, if we can close there, to escape and this is the problem. That is about the penalties involved. If we don't follow the law, there's a huge amount of penalties which flows through. If you see here, they're talking about if a company makes an offer or accepts money in contravention of section 42, if I don't follow 42, it says it can go to the extent of, you see, the company promoters and directors shall be liable for a penalty which may extend to the amount raised through the private placement. That means if I'm raising 1 crore can be the penalty, or 2 crore rupees, whichever is lower. So that means if I'm raising 8 crores, then I can still have a penalty of 2 crores, whatever it went, is it? Sorry? Yeah, but still we're talking about, we're talking about 1 crore if I'm raising the funds. So I still have a liability of 1 crore. And it doesn't stop there. Unfortunately, if you see the wordings, previous one. Yeah. If you see here, it's not just the company, promoters, directors. And if you see the latest style of how ROC and RD notices are coming, they levy on all. On company, they levy one penalty, and on every director, they're levying penalties now. If you have seen the latest way, how they're giving all the notices, how these adjudications are coming through, everywhere they add, and then it comes. So therefore, it's not an easy thing. So please ensure this is followed correctly. So the whole intention of this discussion was, I tell you those loopholes, whatever has to be taken care. Yeah. Oh, the last part. So how much time we have? It's done? Ready, is it? Oh, superb. Then can we do immediately after lunch? Can we take up the valuation? The slide is there. Slide is there. Valuation and the slide is there, right? So actually, slide is there on valuation, right? We can go to the valuation immediately after the lunch, and anyway, can continue with CSR. Shall we do that? Okay. I think we got some clarity. Now, valuation requirements for funding under various regulations are as follows, both for equity and convertibles. You have Companies Act. That means you need valuation under Companies Act. You need valuation under FEMA if there is cross-border transactions, and obviously for income tax. In the course of our discussion before the break, I think I already mentioned about some of them, so you're already aware about it. Just to take you through the nuances here. Funding through equity, you may get the money either from a resident, or you may receive the money from a non-resident. So let's take one at a time. Let's say resident. If the money is coming from a resident, then what happens? Under Companies Act, if at all you're going for a rights issue, there is no requirement of valuation, because rights issue is to your existing shareholders. So does not talk about any valuation requirements. So you don't have to worry about it. But if you're going for private placement, then you need to have an RV report. Then the question comes up is, RV report is valid for how long? So let us say every 15 days, 1 month, if I'm getting a new funding, should I keep doing a valuation every time? Is the question. So we say it has around 6 months. Now this validity of 6 months is not by law. Law does not specify any such time limit. It's only a industry practice. As an industry practice, we all believe that you can have a valuation report and keep it valid for 6 months, because we don't expect too much of changes in the company which will affect the valuation to that large extent to change the valuation itself, and therefore we say 6 months is a good time to have. It is an industry practice only, not by law. That is for the registered valuers report. All this is under Companies Act. Let's come to income tax. Now, as far as income tax is concerned, it is applicable if you issue it at a premium only, that we have discussed before the break. Only then it will apply. Chartered accountant's report is good enough if at all your valuation is based on NAV, which is basically your 11 UA valuation, asset minus liabilities. Whereas if you're going for a DCF, then merchant banker valuation will be required. So if you see income tax 11 UA provision also, it says that if your valuation methodology is on DCF, then you'll have to go for merchant banker. If it's just a pure NAV, then a CA certificate is more than sufficient. Just because we are chartered accountants, you should not tell the company we'll go only for NAV, but it all depends on the client, how it is, as to what is the current stage of the client, what is the transactions happening. So if they already have a good EBITDA going on, then they would obviously prefer to go for a DCF, because internationally accepted valuation methodology is what we should use. And in that process, we'll have to go for a DCF valuation, then MB will come into picture. Then for FEMA, of course, for a resident, it's not at all applicable, because he's a resident, you don't have to worry about FEMA part. Come to non-resident. For a non-resident, for Income Tax and Companies Act, same as resident, whatever I told you before. For FEMA, it is applicable. Obviously, non-residents will apply, and it's either a chartered accountant or an MB report, and the validity is 3 months. Now, this is by law. Now, this is not an industry practice. This is what the law itself is telling. Law itself says that there is a validity period of 3 months, and therefore, once you get a valuation, you can keep and stick to the same valuation for the next 3 months, and then you'll have to go for another valuation if you have crossed. So therefore, it is 6 and 3. So, very good question. Now the question is, I spoke about company law validity time. I spoke about FEMA. So madam caught me in audit. So she did one audit and said, this side you told, that side you told. What about income tax? You did not tell. So we say income tax is always linked with the combo offer. What I mean by combo offer is income tax by silo does not come. It is coming either because of this side Companies Act or that side FEMA. And therefore we say whatever is the validity periods for Companies Act and FEMA will apply for income tax. I think I'm clear on this. It doesn't tell you that the report should be on. If you see, it talks about. Correct, because what happens in income tax is you are trying to value a transaction. So therefore, my relevant date obviously becomes a transaction. So transaction becomes the relevant date. Now, let us say I'm having a transaction every week. So going by the literal interpretation of 56 to 7B, can I take a relevant date as transaction date? Even if I take, let's assume hypothetically I've taken it. So what is the change that I will have in my valuation? There will not be much. You understand? So therefore, we stick to this concept only. Department may come back telling that it should have been there. We say you prove it and show me that there is a change in my valuation. Normally, it will not be there, because the methodologies what we use will not change in 1 week or 10 days. None of them will change. So therefore, it should not matter. And department also knows this. So what we have seen in most of the assessments is they say whatever you're relying, if it's FEMA, this side 3 months, the Companies Act, that side 6 months is good enough for me also. I think I'm clear. No, it's not about which is better. It's what is the company's position. So if the company is a good profitable entity, you go for DCF methods only. Otherwise, only you go for NAV methods where it is just a book value valuation. Yes, right. So it's not based on our choice. It's based on company, how it is performing. Right. Thank you. So I think this is clear on valuation part. Yeah. Don't ask me further questions now. Let us do some valuations because it's not a valuation session. For FEMA, for everything. Yeah, because there is a cross border, no, that is happening. Yeah, this I've already discussed. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so let's get into CSR now, shall we? So I think we had some value addition on funding. I think this session helped you on funding. So let's get into CSR, corporate social responsibility. Thanks. Somebody asked me this question, that this is actually blackmail. They said CSR is not CSR, it's actually blackmail. Saying that my money, this is like at the signal light. I don't know how many of you have experienced, I have experienced. At least not nowadays, because now I use car. Before, when I used to go by two-wheeler, I used to get so scared to stop at the signal light, because I'll stop at the signal light. Some of them will come, right? They'll come and say, give money, give money. Simply if they come and ask, give money, it's okay, because now car is there, we'll put up the glass and say, kodala, 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 kodala. But before it was two-wheeler, I can't put glass also. I remember one of those days, I was in a two-wheeler, stopped at the signal light, and they were coming, and I was getting scared, because they were coming like this, and they were telling me, no, I'm just telling you my experience. So no offense meant to anybody, no offense at all, seriously, but just to share my experience. Actually, I was getting scared. Because sometimes they start putting all the curses and shapa ella haki, they'll do blah 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 dot 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 and all they will tell. I used to get scared. So I'm standing there at the signal, I'm like green, 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 and the signal change to green before they come to me. Anta. As it is, I was shivering. I was getting scared, because they'll come and they'll not leave me if they don't. So they came off, and the signal did not turn green, it was still red only. They came as it is, I was scared. As if it was not enough, they told my name also. I could even, they say, hi, Nan Raja Anta. I said, how do you know my instrument? Right, right. Now you don't have a choice. So it is compulsory. So it looks like a charity, but sometimes it is compulsory. So I think here also CSR may look like a charity, but it is compulsory sometimes. So we can't help it. So let's start with CSR, right? So let's begin with CSR provisions, right? Let's start. Now, as far as the CSR provisions are concerned, if you see some statistics, just to start with a few statistics, 121 billion Indian rupees only. I think we have a banker, right? So, if you see, this is in financial year 22, 200 leading companies listed at the Bombay Stock Exchange in India spent over 121 billion Indian rupees as part of their CSR. That's huge. That's huge. That means we are now talking about an alternate government, because what was once upon a time supposed to be a government's role, you're talking actually about an alternate government coming into picture types. If you see all the, we call it as the HLI report, that is high level committee reports was there. If you look into the high level committee reports, the reports also very clearly said that government is not able to catch up with the pace at which the requirement is there in the country, and therefore we need the support, and that support has to come from the corporate world, and therefore they said that's the situation, we can't help it. Now let's look at the reality, what's happened here. If you look at some of this, even if you can't see the slide properly, don't worry, it's not important, out of syllabus, right? So if you look at this, actually here the green is the actual amount spent on CSR, and the orange is the prescribed CSR what they were supposed to spend. So if you look at Tata's, the green greater than the orange. If you can just look through all the companies, it doesn't matter which company it is, all companies, if you see, the green is greater than orange. I think that talks a lot about our Indian corporate. I think they deserve a round of applause for a good job what they're all doing. I think that's nice to know. So on the one hand, we are telling that, oh, there's a limit on CSR and you're forcing me to spend blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, if you see the reality is they're all spending more than what they were supposed to spend under section 135. So nobody is restricting themselves to 135 alone. They've all gone beyond 135. So then that's the reality of the story. So which means maybe there are some small entities which will say that, hey, 2% I'm unnecessarily supposed to spend, but the reality is they've all gone far beyond that. Now let me just tell you about what started as a charity is now a responsibility, and from a responsibility it's become a mandate. So initially it started, I'm giving you some history here. I don't think we have to spend time on that. By history, it all started like charity, and then we said, okay, you have to take care of society and blah, blah. And finally, now we've reached a stage where it's a mandatory provision now. Now, CSR Indian scenario, we use this very popular dialogue in Hindi. I'm sure many of you would have heard of this dialogue. It's called as Neki Kar, Darya Mein Dal. A very popular Hindi statement. And some of you who don't know Hindi, Neki Kar, Darya Mein Dal means ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ದರಿಯಾ ಮೈ ದಾಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮರ್ತೋಗಿ ಅಂತ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀರಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಂಗೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯು ಪುಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇನ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಗಾನ್. then you forget about it. Do something like how we say if you have done something in the right hand, the left hand should not know types, in the sense that, you've done charity, the right should, left should also not know. So it's like that. You just do charity and just forget about it. It's called as Neki Kar Darya Mein Dal. And people used to tell this dialogue whenever you used to say CSR. People used to say, "Oh, Neki Kar Darya Mein Dal, chhod do, it's okay. Do good and leave it off." Chance illa. Section 135 will levy left, right, center penalty on you if you follow this procedure. Because now the system is Neki Kar or report karo. Website may report karo. In the website, you have to tell what is your CSR initiatives. Your board's report must have an annexure talking about what is your CSR spending. Your AOC 4, when you're filing, along with that, you have to file about what is the CSR. Auditors will tell you whether you have done or not done CSR. So, Neki Kar Darya Mein Dal nahi hai. So, after that, if you don't take it, they'll put you into Darya. Matlab, they will put us into the water and make us flow away. So therefore, this concept doesn't work anymore, because there's a lot of compliances that we have to take care now once you're talking about CSR. There was a time wherein when CSR started under 135, very clever, government did. They said, comply. This is what it used to be. Comply or reason out. Means what? You gave a reason why you did not spend. That's all it was. Okay, I couldn't spend. I was busy. Whatever reasons, but I did not spend, give one reason, good enough. Now it is no more comply and reason out. It is now comply or penalty. So that means now it is a mandatory provision. Now it's no more Darya Mein Dal concept at all. This is something I thought I will start my discussion with. I will not start again journal entry and all. No, don't say, that time you started journal entry. Now we'll start with something else. Cash versus accrual. Again back to first PC. There is a journal entry. Now we are talking about cash versus accrual. There's something very important for us to understand practically, again, very practical. Cash versus accrual. What is that? If you see, we are profits, I'm supposed to take PBT, profit before taxes, and that too calculated under section 198. So based on that 198 calculation, what we normally do for managerial remuneration, take that 198 ka profit and it should be before tax. Okay, I took the profit before tax. That means in the profit before tax, already tax is going to go first. Whether I like it or not, so out of the tax is going off, okay, it will go, let it go. Then I have to now talk about 2% as an expenditure based on the 3 years average, that's okay, but the fact is 2% is my expenditure. Now let's talk about practically. Normally, because we are all of the same profession, what will be the normal NP ratio in most of the client cases on some average? I'm not talking about GP ratio, gross profit ratio, I'm telling net profit ratio. NP ratio would be under normally, not the GP, gross profit or EBITDA ratio and all. I'm telling about the NP ratio, 10%. So I'll take an average of 10% so that it's easy to calculate. Calculator bada. Yeah. So let's put it as around 10%. Let's imagine by a calculation, okay. Profit margin 10% is what I have. Now think from the point of view of reality of business. I will always have credit sales. I have a huge amount of debtors sitting. So I'll have a huge debtors turnover ratio, which is there. That means in reality, my profits are actually sitting in debtors. In the actual business scenario I'm talking about, because whatever little money I was left, I paid taxes, because that he does not give me time. So I have to pay my taxes. So that means my profit is there. I'm not denying I don't have a profit. I have a profit, but my profit is sitting in debtors. But then you say, I have to spend 2%. It doesn't say spendable, right? It says spend. Now here is I feel that there is a lot of a mismatch in the way the calculation has been done. In the sense, one side you want me to take the profits on accrual basis, because my profits is all on accrual basis. But when it comes to CSR 2%, it's on cash basis, because you're making me spend. So you're taking an accrual number, and from an accrual number, you're coming out with a cash number. But I think this is against accountancy principle itself. So that means, in other words, you're following mixed system of accounting, which we had banned, that hybrid system, cash and accrual together, which we don't allow only. But here you're following cash and accrual as a mixed concept here. I think you're with me in what I'm talking about. Now, this is where the problem of a client comes into picture. See, this is where the client says, look, I don't have a problem in spending. I have a problem in understanding from where do I get the money. So it's like I have to take a loan for the sake of spending. Now, I don't deny I don't have profits, but there's a fight between cash versus accruals. So this is one major practical issue. I don't have a solution for this, but this is a practical issue because that we can tell even for taxes. No, same dialogue you can say for tax also. My taxes is in debtors. So ask my debtors, I'll give you the list. Which income tax officer will agree for that? He said, that's your problem. You pay. So same way, extra 2% you add for that and say this also I have to spend. Then we have the CSR committee part. Now this cycle, I want all of you to be clear on this. We will have a CSR policy, right? If you see today's style, we are no more interested in simply neki kar darya mein dal concept. Because there's a reporting requirement, now my ego comes into picture. Send hello, I'm spending so much money. Now everybody asks me, including my shareholders, in the meeting, in the AGMs, they'll ask me saying that, how did you spend? What good have you done to society? Those questions they started to ask. So now it's not simply about taking some money and putting up to some fund, some of the government funds. That is the easiest way to do. Take money, calculate the 2%, simply give it off to some PM cares and things like that and say, ho gaya. Yeah, Darya Mai Dal bola na, so Ganga. So give it off to Ganga fund and things like that. That's an easier way to do it. But no company is actually interested in doing that. Now they say, let me create something so that I also am creating an impact. So if you see the recommendation of the HLC committee report, they said, try to spend the money on the local areas where you operate. No mandate, then try to spend. So that means, don't you think indirectly government also is telling that indirect marketing is okay? The very fact you're telling, spend the money on local. Let's say I'm having a factory. I'm having a factory in one of the suburban, let us say one of those tier 2 cities. So they're asking me to spend the money in the local area, which indirectly means there's a branding for me. Direct branding is not CSR. If I say I'm spending money on advertisement, I'm spending money on marketing, that is supposed to be not a CSR at all. We all know that. But actually indirectly they're allowing me to do branding because they're only telling me spend it on the local area where you operate. So that means there is some benefit I do get from the society when I'm spending CSR. This has been very well understood by all the major corporates. So they've understood there may not be a direct impact as far as I'm concerned, but I think my brand image is going up by doing, and that is why the first slide makes sense to us. Why they're spending more than what they were supposed to spend. And that's how slowly the entire corporate trend is changing. Yes, sir. Can you spend on colleges? Can you spend the money on colleges? If you see the latest amendment that happened in 21 and 22, there were two amendments which happened, one in 21 and 22 in the CSR rules. There they've added for an implementing agency. They have added implementing agency. If you see the definition and in your rules for CSR rules, they've added implementing agencies where they said it includes, it used to be only an entity which was covered under, registered under 12A and 80G, used to be. Now they amended the law and said, from now on, we also include entities which are under 1023C, 4, 5, 6, 7A, which means what? Now your educational institutions, hospitals, all of them are getting covered under this criteria. And that means now you can, as long as they are a CSR Schedule 7, 100%, then you can give. I think you also got my point, right? So basically we are telling simple, as long as it is still CSR, part of Schedule 7, which we are going to get into now, right? What is the Schedule 7 and all that? And it's a philanthropic entity, not a profitable entity. Absolutely no problem at all. Absolutely no problem, which is expressly given by law. I'm not even telling implied. I will show it to you as I go forward as to how it is expressly given. So this entire process has become very popular now. So for us, advising the client is to tell him first to have a CSR policy. This is the first thing we have to tell a client. Hey, please have one CSR policy, have a strategy as to what is it that you want to make a change in somebody's life. At the end, we'll also discuss about impact assessment. Currently, impact assessment is only about 10 crores requirement, but otherwise, what is the objective? What is the change I'm able to bring in because of the money that I'm trying to spend? So we're talking about having a CSR policy, identifying the cause, and the cause should be within Schedule 7, whatever is given there. Then modes of spending, we'll discuss that. There's a utilization certificate we have to take to prove that I have spent it. And then you keep monitoring the entire process and again see whether you have to revise your CSR policy, and the chain continues. Now, the entire topic of discussion on CSR is split like this. So this is what I'll take you through. We will take you through in this session. That is on applicability of CSR, CSR committee, expenditure, schedule 7. Then what is not CSR? Then your compliance calendar as to what you should take care. I'll just tell you what is the compliance you have to take care. Then the amendment rules regarding reporting. Then profits for CSR and expenditure and implementing of CSR. In this, we'll try to reduce the theory part and try to increase practically what all we should take care of and where the client always, because normally client comes back and tells, first you did not tell me that I was supposed to spend. This we should have only told. So client always, you didn't tell that I was supposed to spend. So that is the first thing we have to check is whether he's crossing those limits. So right from the applicability part. So Shri, if you can just take us through from there. From here. Okay, I'll take this first. Okay, thanks. So she gave me permission. So if you look at this, first applicability. Now, as far as section 135 is concerned, it says if you have net worth of 500 crores or more, one criteria, and mind you, it is or. That means any one criteria satisfied. Or if you have a turnover of 1000 crores or more, or net profit of 5 crores or more. Practically, most of these private entities will land up here. That is net profit of 5 crores or more. The larger entities will anyway get covered here. That means if you're looking at the listed entities and all those guys, they get covered in any of these criteria. But the regular private entities normally gets covered here. That is net profit of 5 crores or more. And some of these large private entities get covered here also with a turnover of 1000 crores or more. Now for them, CSR will become applicable. This is your 135. So I always tell that easy to remember 135. This I used to tell when I used to teach. I don't teach anymore. I only take sessions like this, that's all. So when I used to teach, I used to tell, easy to remember 135. So I should tell them 135 means what? Section 135 says there are 3 conditions. These three conditions. In the 3 conditions, one condition is about 5, that is 500 crores. Then one more condition is about 1. 1 is at 1000 crores. And there's a bracket 1. That one is this point which says that 5 must be repeated one more time. And therefore we say 5 crores, right? So that's how I should tell them to remember. So basically the criteria to remember very easy. You should have a net profit of 5 crores or more. Now, when should I have all this? We're talking about preceding financial year. That means I am not taken by surprise. 31st March is over. Now we are in June. So I think I already know what is my position for 31st March year ending. Let's take currently. We're talking about year ending 31st March 23. So I think I already know my position. So because I'm looking at preceding financial year, I know whether I've already satisfied any of these conditions. If I have satisfied, then in the current year, that is 23, 24, I should ensure I have CSR committee and start spending on CSR. So this is, I think, very clear for us. Now, having talked about the applicability of CSR as to whom it applies. So immediate question, can it happen that 1 year CSR applies, next year CSR does not apply? 3rd year again CSR applies, 4th year CSR does not apply. Can it happen? Of course it can happen, because every time I'm looking at only previous year. So just like how we have an income tax, when we talk about residential status, right? When we talk about residential status, section 6 subsection 1 income tax act, we always tell that only, you know, saying that look at what you were in the previous year. Maybe last year I was a non-resident, but this year I'm a resident, and again I can change next year. Now let's talk about the committee part. So first question that comes about committee, should I have a committee? Once I have a committee, should I always have a committee, or that also can be coming and going? So what do you feel about the committee? CSR applicability we understood. Every year it can change. CSR committee once it is formed, let us say this year CSR applies and therefore I have a committee. Committee should stay, or they can also like 1 year be there, 1 year not there. So that means 1 year they can be there, next year no committee. If it's no, I mean, if the applicability is not there. Yeah. So sir is telling that if the provision only is not applicable, then what will I do with committee? Sumne samosa waste alli. Or one samosa jamun ella kotto committee meeting madi, because it's compulsory, you know. Once you have committee, you have to have meetings. Meeting and mele eating. Every meeting must have a eating, no? So, oh, drink, you. Acha, coffee, tea, then it's okay. Right. Right. So, we had a very strange provision in CSR. They said, once CSR becomes applicable, then the committee will cease, look at the wordings, huh? Committee will cease only if the parameters are not met for 3 consecutive years. I don't know if you understood the law there. So for 3 consecutive years, if the parameters are not met, then only committee will cease. Which means I have a committee, next 3 years, Dakota company. You know what I mean? Profit illa, turnover illa, nothing is there. Yeah, committee mata samosa jamun guaranteed. Adu 3 years. And that was a ridiculous provision. And like what you said, when applicability only is not there, why you need committee? So thankfully they've amended now. Now they've amended, they've deleted rule 3(2). Recently they've deleted this provision. And by deleting that provision, now what? Because of deleting the provision, now the implication of that is, like what sir said, if it is applicable, have. Not applicable, committee not required. So that is the latest law now. Finally, your point has been taken. Right. So as far as the committee is concerned, applicability is based on 135(1). That is the 3 parameters, what we saw. Then the CSR committee will be there under 1 and 2, and their job is to take care of the expenditure. That is 135(5), which talks about the expenditure part. Now CSR committee, let me quickly tell you about the committee part. 3 or more directors, of which at least 1 shall be independent director. That is where you have an independent director. For a private company, anyway, we don't have independent directors and all. So what happens here is second case, if company is not required to have an independent director, then 2 or more directors. So out of the board of directors, 2 of them will come and sit as CSR committee. Then disclose composition CSR committee in the board's report. Now, this is all, it's so unfortunate. All these points used to be neglected before. I have board's report only what we write, what we don't write, it's okay. Anta. Please see from the last, I think 6 months to 1 year, the kind of notices all the private companies are getting now. Because they're telling board's report is it is wrong. Your board's report is not complying with the law. Your filings are not correct. Your disclosures are not correct. The way they're levying penalties left, right. So all of you, please, I'm sure all of you must be aware. Even for not maintaining the smallest of small resolutions also, you're getting notices now. So private company notices is going to increase in the coming period. That is maybe in 23 now, you'll find lots of notices on a private company now. Because they realize public companies are being taken care properly by SEBI regulations. So now the target is private because fertile area, right? For them to do a lot of harvesting. So therefore now they realize there's a lot of fertility here and therefore they're trying to target for their harvest sake. Right? So be very careful. This is a major issue now that's going to come up. Then continue CSR committee if company has unspent CSR. Now this is very interesting they've added. Let us say last year CSR was applicable to my company. Okay. But this year, let us say CSR is not applicable. Let's assume CSR is not at all applicable for me. Logically, I don't have to have a committee. But if I have unspent CSR money, which I'm trying to carry forward for 3 years, I'll explain about the unspent ongoing projects and so on. If I have that money, then I must continue with my CSR committee because they are the ones who told me that how I'm going to spend in the next 3 years. They have kept the roadmap and therefore monitoring they should only do. Therefore, committee continues. I think we are clear on this. Even if CSR is not applicable now, but because I have one old CSR money which I have not yet spent and I have unspent money which I can carry forward for 3 years, then I will continue to have my CSR committee also. I think that is logical because they are the ones who have created this and they have to follow it up. Then the other part is very nice now. CSR obligation up to 50 lakhs, board may discharge the function of CSR committee. That means you don't have to have a CSR committee if the amount you are going to spend is not crossing 50 lakhs. So if it is up to 50 lakhs, you don't have to worry about CSR. So CSR committee not required in those cases. This is again an amendment which happened in 21. So if it is within 50 lakhs, by simple calculation, 2% is 50 lakhs. I mean, we're talking about 2% is your CSR spend, and that is 50 lakhs. So if 2% is 50 lakhs, then 100% is? Oh, sorry. I thought it was simple question. Yeah. 2% is 50 lakhs. Then how much is 100%? How much? So that means we are talking about a profitability of 25. So the way you can look at it is like this. If your companies, that the client's profitability of the company is below 25, then you know CSR committee is not required. I hope you know what I'm trying to say indirectly. See the P&L. In the P&L, you know the profitability is not crossing 25. Then you know you don't have to have a CSR committee. Am I clear? You cross 5 crores. Come again, sir. Correct. You can tell them buy, no samosa. Absolutely. So what, I'll repeat the question for benefit of the rest of them. If I already had a CSR committee because of the old law, so this is an amendment, this has come only now. So because of the old law, I already had a CSR committee. Now the law says not required and I'm coming within that limits. That means I'm coming within the 50 lakhs limit and so on, and no unspent CSR also. Then can I tell them buy? Answer is yes. You can immediately wind up. It doesn't mean you're sending them out because they're still one of the directors of the board. Yeah, don't ask them to go off home. They're still part of board of directors. You're only avoiding the paperwork of another committee meetings with music, all that you will avoid. So you don't have to do any of those activities. That's all. Right. So let's come to the CSR expenditure part. That's the 2% expenditure. Now we say it is 2% of the average net profits of 3. So any complicate. Yeah. First you told go by previous year. Correct? No problem. They said go by previous year. That is for applicability. But for spending, they want us to go by last 3 years average. Why you want to tell? First of all, some of them came to commerce because they were weak in maths. I mean, at that time it used to be like that only. Yeah, we all took commerce because maths barala. So commerce, yeah, the previous year, the 3 year average, right? So now they told, okay, make it as 3 year average, unnecessary. In that also one confusion started. You should know mathematics the way we can do. Yeah, Einstein also cannot match our mathematics. You told average of 3 years, correct? Then one chartered accountant calculated. You told average of 3 years. My company is existing only from 1 year. Other 2 years, I'll say plus 0 divided by 3. So less 0 plus 0 divided by 3, average. You will get 1 lakh point, right? So by that calculation, instead of doing CSR, he had to receive. Right? So he should receive CSR, that situation. So they changed the law again. I'm not joking. They changed the law. They changed the law and they added this dialogue. They added this dialogue or such lesser preceding financial from incorporation. It was not there before. They added these wordings because our people full mathematics, high level maths. Right? They said plus 0 divided by 3. CSR expenditure, right? So they changed this law again. Now they said if you're existing for 1 year, take 1 year only. 2 years means 2 years average only you take. If you're there for 3 years, take 3 years average. And this is what I said, give preference to local area. It's only not a mandate, it's only a directive principle. Failure to spend. Now, even now you still have to specify.
Local area means they have a registered office.
Anywhere. They are not defined. Absolutely not defined. See, especially for a company which has retail outlets across. If I have retail outlets across, like the showrooms what I have, because mine is a B2C transaction and I have retail outlets everywhere, then local area can be everything. Mera Bharat Mahan. The entire Bharat is local area. Forget about that part. Local area itself is not a mandate. So therefore, even if I have just one single office in Rajasthan and I decide to spend all the money in Kalaspalyam here, there's one area called Kalaspalyam, right? If I came to know only after I saw one poster, one movie poster, Kalaspalyam, right? So if you're spending in Kalaspalyam, nobody is going to ask you saying that why did you do that? Because it's only a preference give to a local area, but no mandate. So nothing to worry about that. Right? Then come to the next part about failure to spend. You still have to specify the reasons for not spending and transfer the unspent amount to a fund. That we'll discuss about all these points within 6 months from the end of the year, unless it's an ongoing project. I'll tell you 2 types of projects. One is called ongoing projects and one is called one-time projects. One-time projects, as and when you spend, you have to do it. Then ongoing projects, of course, you have time for 3 years and so on. We will discuss about that in detail. Now, this is a very interesting point. Administrative overheads cannot exceed 5%. I'm asking all of you one general question. Tell me in any of the organizations that you know, any organization that you know which your clients are dealing with, what will be the percentage of overheads of any business? Any business you take, apart from the direct expenses is what is right away related to your revenue. Indirect expenses are all called overheads for us. All the indirect expenses as a percentage normally will be how much? Overhead percentages? 30 to 40%. That is what even I have seen in all the industries. On an average, the overheads will be 30-40%. Correct? Here we are telling it cannot cross 5%. Yeah. Everywhere industry standards is 30-40% as overhead expenses. Now here you're telling 5%. Now even to do spending, let us say there's a CSR and I have to do the spending. If you're telling limited to 5%, how do I spend? That means I have to stand on the balcony of my registered office and throw like this. Yeah, telling CSR because if I come, I have to spend overheads expenditure. This became a big issue about overhead expenditure. It looks like some unwanted point, but it's actually a very important point for practically spending. And we came out with remedy for this. The remedy for this is the MCA FAQs. MCA came out with a circular giving some of the frequently asked questions. One of the frequently asked questions was as 5%. We said, well, how the hell will we restrict ourselves to 5%? So there in one of the FAQs, they gave a solution. They only gave structural planning. So they said, if you think that expenses is going to go up, which will go up, they said, as a company, you don't spend. Give it to an implementing agency. And then you outsource. Outsource this to another entity. Next question comes, who is that another entity? That another entity can be your own NGO, your own. That means you can create your own NGO, or it can be a government. I'm using the word NGO in the broader sense. Technical wordings if you want, then it says it should be a Section 8 company or a trust or a society which is registered under Section 12A and 80G of Income Tax Act, or which is exempt under Section 1023C for the purpose of including the educational institutions and hospitals, etc., etc. So that is what they mean. In that they're telling you either it can be your own NGO, charitable institution, or it can be government ka charitable institution, or it can be any other charitable institution. But if it is any other charitable institution, they must have a track record of 3 years. So please be very careful here. If I am starting my own, I am X Limited and I float my own X foundation, X Limited ka foundation if I create, then track record of 3 years is not required. I can create my own NGO, then I'll call that as an implementing agency, transfer the CSR amount to that agency and make that agency spend. Then I don't have a problem of 5%. I hope you're understanding. Yes, because that 5% is for me as a company, but not on the implementing agency. So that way I can take care is what they're telling. So I can create my own trust, my own society, my own Section 8 company and make them spend the CSR amount by giving them the CSR policy. I told you in the previous place, you have to create a CSR policy and tell them how they have to spend and we'll monitor everything. It's a principal agent relationship. Please understand the wordings is implementing agency, and agency means principal agent relationship Indian Contract Act created. Therefore, they're only acting as a agent and I am the principal for it. So that is what we have to take care. Or I am not interested in creating my own trust, my own foundation. Then whatever government trust, government foundation, Section 8 companies are there, give it to them. If your objective is similar to their objective, you want to do something on, let us say, slum, rehabilitation and development, give it to them. They will do it for you, correct? You can give it to them. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give it to any government agency. But I know one of these agencies here which is doing a fantastic job. I know they're doing a fabulous job. I can see them, they're honestly working and helping the people. Okay, for them, check whether they have 3-year track record. Are we clear on this? Yes. Oh, Rambani will scold. Straight away he says you are Reliance. All of you, proof. So tomorrow I'm going to go to Mumbai and I'll be sitting there in that office. Thank you, but yeah. Okay, I'm Reliance.
Something like that.
Hmm.
He's running an NGO for more than 6 years.
Hmm.
And now only I got second registration.
No problem.
Then
Absolutely. As long as you have, I understood. As long as you have a track record of existing from the last 3 years, no problem. They are not telling you must have a track record of having section 12A for 3 years. I hope you understood the difference. It only says you must have a track record of having similar activities from the last 3 years. Your registration of 12A can be taken now. I have no problem. Your 12A registration and ATG registration, if you're taken now, absolutely no problem. Absolutely no problem.
The company pays to the trust, the implementation is that. Suppose they have given 10 lakh.
You can take the mic, it'll help us. Incidentally, she is our next speaker, no? So
So with the money, suppose 10 lakh rupees is given for the trust for the implementation of a CSR activity. And then while implementing this, there are expenditure which the trust would incur. That would be the salary cost of the employees of the trust. Can that also form part of the CSR spend of the company?
fantastic. So I think you all heard the question. I don't have to repeat the question. If I am doing it as a company, we have a problem. 5% limit is there. If the implementing agency is doing, what we interpret is like this. You have to tell that these guys are doing for that activity. That is because the reason I've created that is for this particular activity. Everything is deemed to be a direct expense. I hope you understand the logic here. Everything I spend becomes a direct expense. There's no overheads now because it is for that project that I've hired everybody. I've taken the place, I've taken the vehicles, everything I'm doing for that project only. So everything becomes mine. Direct expense for me. So there's nothing remaining as a indirect expense. I think we are clear on this. Yes. Yeah. So therefore, I think we're clear on all these aspects. So let me go to the last part here. Here, this part, there is now a provision for carry forward of excess expenditure to next 3 years. So if we saw in the beginning that many of the entities spend extra, that extra if they want, they can carry, if they want. There's no hard and fast rule, but if they want, they can carry forward it to subsequent years. But if you have to be careful here, this part is very important because many of the clients have come back to me telling me that, see, first, no, full Josh. They spent for CSR, full Josh only. I'm doing this project, that project. I have a lot of ambition. Normally, because anyway, you have to spend. Then why not do it with our objective? I always had this dream of doing something to society, and therefore you did it. Full Josh Marbitru. Next year, COVID came. And like something like that happened, let's say. Loss andre, they have profits, but not like how they expected like before. So they're asking, see, last time I already spent more. Can I adjust? No, adjust. So can I adjust last year? Actually, answer is no. This is something, please tell your clients also. Whenever they want, they cannot come and say, last year I spent more. No, you adjust. No, you cannot adjust. So the very important aspect for all of us to remember is this dialogue. Provided, what does it say? Provided a resolution to that effect is passed by the board. That means when you're spending extra, in the resolution you are told that according to 135, my spending is X amount, but I am spending X plus so much amount, and therefore I am passing a resolution that for that excess, the board is now approving its carry forward for the subsequent years. That should have been done then only, at the time of spending itself. Are we very clear on this? Because most of the companies, they come back only post-mortem. They'll come back next year and say, I spent no adjust madi agala, because that time you should have passed a resolution for it. So only if you have passed a resolution, you can carry forward, not simply carry forward. It's not automatic. It's not automatic. If you don't pass a board resolution for carry forward, it is assumed that you wanted to spend more. And it stops there. Carry forward concept is not there. Are we clear? Filing requirement you have got, no? CSR2. CSR2. Okay. Resolution must be there. When I come and see, resolution must be there. That much I'll tell. Okay. I think I gave the answer. Past, present, or future. So resolution must be there. That's all I can tell. That is why I think now in that amendment, they've added that audit trail. Yeah, create that audit trail compulsorily with timestamp. Next ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ meetings go ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Then again resolutions go, it will come, right?
Voluntary contribution by them.
Acha. So I'll just repeat, what he's asking is all those entities which have actually been spending more, are they also doing carry forward? The entities which I have shown that all those big guys, they're not doing any carry forward. They have taken it as a project to keep spending. So none of them are actually doing carry forward. Only all these private companies and all would like to do that. They don't want to take a chance. But those entities, because they've all driven by project. They said this is the project. Now this village, it's like adopting the village. Some Mahesh Babu movie was there, no? Something like that. What is that? Shrimantudu. Something like that. I'm adopting the village. So like that. So these guys are all actually adopting like that only. They take over one area and they say, I'm going to spend. So they're not looking at how much is the CSR expend. They're looking at how much is required for that place to be rehabilitated. So that's how these guys are working on. So that is how they're going across. Fine. So I think now we'll get into what are the activities we can spend on CSR, because that is the most important. Client will always ask you this question. Okay, I have surplus. Tell me where I can spend. And we'll give a standard answer. Put it to some government fund. Yeah, PM cares, so Ganga, give it out to somewhere there. Instead, let us see what are the other options which are available, which they can do it. I think that's a better way of doing it going forward. Very small entity or not, don't care, it's okay. But otherwise, I think we can do a lot of difference to many of these entities. And I know so many charitable institutions who are doing fabulous jobs. I think you can as well give the money to them, monitor it. You can always monitor it to see whether they are spending it or not. Just to add one point before Sri takes over, like how we have a stock exchange, you're going to get a social stock exchange very soon. It's already been approved and you will have a social stock exchange very soon. And once the social stock exchange comes, it is going to be a game changer for all of us. Because in the social stock exchange, like how you have got in the regular stock exchange, the companies being listed and you know how the prices are going up and coming down, like that you'll have all the NGOs listed in the stock exchange and you'll know the ratings of all these NGOs. That means how we have given, like how you get the ratings for anything you want to eat, you know, the food ratings for the restaurants, right? All your Swiggies and Zomatos and things like that ratings, you'll get it in the social stock exchange. That way it gives you a good responsibility on the stock exchange also, and those NGOs today saying that they will become more competitive. Today, NGOs will like to take our services only as a formality. But tomorrow they'll take it up with a lot of seriousness. Why? Because they know that if they have proper recording, proper documentation, then their ratings will go up in the stock exchange, which means they'll be having better funding for all their projects to come. So the social stock exchange is coming soon. It's already been approved. Just a matter of time that it will be launched. You can search in the search engines, you can find stock exchange, social stock exchange policy document is there. It's a very large policy document.
So in fact, for our chartered accountants, it's quite a good option of a career in the office, what we can do. We have started that and we are working with around 60 NGOs now. We do the accounting, the minutes, payroll, filings, everything is done in such a way that they're ready for CSR funding. Mostly whoever is funding will look for that as one of the first points in the checklist. It can be a great revenue stream for us CA firms. Filings with the income tax, societies, the trust, society registrations, those type of filings only. Statutorily only that is required, and bylaws you have to follow. That's the only thing. So Raja has given quite a good grounding on what CSR is. What you understood now is actually going to flow through the entire rest of the session. It is now mostly like a Q&A where we can fast track. How the CSR law has evolved over the last few years or decades is how these points also in Schedule 7 have got added. Initially, there was hunger and poverty. What you see is an list which is very broad and you can interpret it liberally. So on how the liberal interpretation can be done also, we have collated a few points through the FAQs. So the eradicating hunger and poverty is one of the things. Healthcare plays a very important role. Then education is another of the things. Promoting education is very, very liberally interpreted. You will find quite a lot of things coming under promoting education. Gender equality, hostels for women, orphans, old age homes. This is also one of the erstwhile Schedule 7 points. It's continuing. Environment is a major importance right now. So anything towards the CSR spend on environment qualifies. Natural heritage arts and handicrafts. So you're preserving of the heritage sites, museums, that sort of a work. Armed forces, veterans, war widows. So anything to do with the armed forces also qualify as a CSR spend for whichever corporate is spending. Coming to 7, 8, and 9. So 7, until 7, it was always there. After that, it has gotten added, considering the more important things, current scenario requirements are there. So the training to promote rural sports, Olympic, nationally recognized sports. So sports is one of the important things because India today plays such a huge role in sports across everywhere and internationally. This is the Modi government initiative where Swachh Bharat, anything to do with Clean Ganga, Swachh Bharat, whole lot of things relating to cleanliness along with the labs, these R&D labs, which do quite a good lot of work. They're also included. Contribution to incubators or R&D projects funded by government, specifically funded by government. If you contribute, it qualifies. Contribution to public funded universities, IITs, your national labs also gets qualified. Anything you do in terms of rural development, that qualifies as CSR. Slum area development, disaster management. Your COVID was largely termed as disasters. So anything relating to COVID falls under that. Healthcare, it comes under healthcare, the very first one. In healthcare, it qualifies. So now we'll see quite a lot of points where it is yes or no. Ideally, I would have wanted the question and the answer to come in later, but it is no rocket science. So the first thing we are seeing here is promoting education. This is under Schedule 7.2, where promoting education is largely interpreted is what I told. Here you will have quite a lot of them. So educating the masses and promotion of road safety awareness. So anything to do with road safety awareness, they're considering it as promoting education. So under road safety awareness, you will find safety, traffic engineering, and awareness through print, audio, and visual media. So if any of your IAs are doing these works and you're contributing, we are telling that it qualifies as CSR.
So this is trying to give you a broader perspective as to what they mean in Schedule 7. So Schedule 7 only gave you one line. So we are trying to tell you how that one line can be interpreted. So when you say we are talking about promoting education, even a road safety awareness is also called as education. So I'm trying to tell you as to how broad all these Schedule 7 points are. You don't have to restrict it to one way of looking at it. So we're trying to broaden your perspective, saying that all this can be called as CSR itself.
And in fact, we are not telling this. This is given through the Ministry of Corporate Affairs FAQs that they have come up. In that they have, as and when the years have progressed and they have found more and more people asking questions on these lines, they've clarified it quite a bit. And as auditors, that's our role, where your client has spent on something and you have to actually qualify that it is CSR spend or not. So you will have a very good understanding through this FAQ. Non-academic technopark TBI not located within an academic institution, but approved and supported by Department of Science and Technology. Again, they're considering it as promoting education. And this is the Applied Research Training and Innovation Center at Nasik. The center will cover the aspects relating to CSR initiatives for the benefit of rural farming community. That also is going to consider as promoting education and a Schedule 7 activity. Vocational skills, okay. At the head of promoting education and vocational skills and rural development. So it will come under 3 categories. So, yes, sir. No, sir. So if the company is working through a trust, you don't have a concern. So the company is spending for this through some implementing agencies, you don't need any approval. In fact, nowhere there is a prior approval. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. There is nothing called prior approval for any of them. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely.
But are there cases where they have contacts saying that it's not a CSR?
It is more than ROC coming back, auditors have come back. You've got stat auditors who say that I don't agree this is CSR. Wherein they say I will have to report it, saying that I don't think this is CSR. So that way we have got situations. Till now, ROC as such has not come back telling it is not
None so far.
CSR.
In all the notices we've seen, none so far on CSR.
Because otherwise also CSR is very nascent still. It's still very new. So that kind of notices may take time.
Having said that, Ben 2 notices we have started to get already. There was late filing of Ben 2. They are now calling upon and telling default you've done in filing, so pay penalties. Maybe that way they will pick up. We never know. So anything under research in the area of research and studies can qualify. For that, what all are some listed items? Providing effective consumer grievance redressal mechanism. So anything you are doing for consumer redressal, think that it is qualifying. Protecting consumers' health and safety, sustainable consumption, consumer service, support and complaint resolution. So this is all of it in this category only. Any consumer protection activities, consumer rights to be mandated, all consumer protection programs and activities on the same lines as rural development education. So this is something I suggest if you have any doubt. Actually, Hina was telling me the maximum questions which she gets from her client more than anything is how to utilize their CSR funds. So if you can educate a client on what all qualifies as CSR, then they can take a more informed decision and what usually is an objective which is close to their heart.
I'll just, sorry to interrupt. See, normally the way we tell a client is like this. If somebody asks you, where should I spend my money? You should ask them to do a deep dive into their business itself. Ask them to do the deep dive into their own business. One of them was into packing industry. So they were into a packing industry and they're manufacturing these corrugated boxes and things like that. So we told him, okay, you deep dive into your own business and see as to what you want to do. So when they went on deeper, they realized that all these corrugated boxes comes from paper. Paper is coming from trees. Then they said, let me do a CSR activity of planting trees. That's how they go deeper. I'll give you one more example. Maruti also had this issue as to where do we spend the money. Then Maruti also went deeper to understand where is their pain point. Because for a corrugated packing industry, the pain point would have been afforestation. That means the trees. And therefore for them, CSR activity became trees. So Maruti, they looked into saying that what is their pain point? They said we're not getting the kind of people, labor force has always been an issue. Then they said, let us do vocational training as the CSR activity. Now, mind you, if the vocational training is done saying that I'll do only for Maruti, then it is wrong because then it's become part of business. Anything part of business is not called as CSR. But if you give it as a general like an ITI training, right? You know, these IITs and ITI trainings which are done, and you establish and say we're giving a vocational training, and that's what they did. They took the permissions for giving the courses from the government, from the Ministry of Human Resources. They took the permission saying that these diploma courses will have coming under vocational training, wherein they can get jobs in various places, not just only here. Incidentally, somebody may come and join their own Maruti industry also, but the fact is it's not meant only for that. It's meant for everybody at large, wherein you're trying to provide all that. That vocational training itself became a CSR activity. So in every industry, they can look deeper into their own businesses. They'll just come to know saying that I think I can do in this area. Then you link it with Schedule 7. Then you see under what broad category you can fall under for the sake of implementation.
Children are portraying that they have to save environment and all. Nowhere in the ad it says that it is promoting the sale of tea, but parents are carrying a cup of tea. So can we say this as a CSR spend because it is promoting education, or it becomes a part of advertisement?
So forget about that particular advertisement. Usko chhod do, okay? Let's take general advertisements. Until the end of the advertisement, we don't know what is that advertisement. Have you seen most of the advertisements? The advertisement until the end you don't know. Only at the end you come to know, for this is the advertisement. So that means, so most of the advertisements today as a norm has become that you don't know for what this advertisement is. So therefore, very difficult to say whether it was part of the normal course of business advertisement or part of CSR. So therefore, if you want to still call it as a CSR, that cup should not be there and the last initiative by so and so should not be there. Then I can call it as CSR. I think you understood, because ultimately the awareness is about one aspect, you have to stop there. So like how we talked about public safety, right, or traffic safety and all that. Correct.
That is why it has been mentioned as liberally interpreted. Any donations for the renovation of classrooms would qualify as promoting education. Very classically, I have seen that corporates give donations to Rotary to identify a school where they can easily do their CSR spend. Anything to do with drivers training, if you have actually in case, because anything that is going to give employment to people will qualify as vocational skills, and in that direction, anything you do will come as CSR spend. Capacity building for farmers covering best sustainable farm management practices, again a vocational skill. Training for agricultural labor on skill development, and training to enforcement personnel. So training to enforcement personnel, what we are telling is no, it is establishment function of government, so it cannot be covered. That aspect we are telling is not covered, and rest of the others you saw is covered.
See, what they're trying to say is what government is supposed to do, government only supposed to do. That you can't interfere and say, I'll call it a CSR. Now, when it comes to training their own people, it is government's job to train its own people. That is not my job. So tomorrow I cannot say military training is happening and that military training I will give. How to use AK-47 and all. No, that is not my job. So that is government's job only. I can't call it as a CSR activity. Is what is the clarification they're trying to say. What is part of the government function only. Supporting the government can be my job. But what is their job only, it will be their job. So government owned personnel, if I do something that cannot be called as CSR.
Sir, on healthcare, now we have a few things where provisions for aids, that is hearing aids and appliances for differently abled people, in case we are doing something on these lines, trauma care around highways in case of road accidents, social business projects like giving medical and legal aid, treatment to road accident victims should be included. So all this are going to get considered under
this
health.
is where, madam, see, when we talk about highways, let us say there's some accident and these highway trauma care ambulances come. That is why we see on the ambulance, it will not be the company name, it will be the company's foundation. So you still have your company brand getting created, but that brand comes through the foundation. So you'll say it is so-and-so company foundation, a so-and-so company trust, so-and-so company charitable institution. So that way your company is still getting its name, but it is coming through foundation. And that is why as a structure also, we always advise, create your own trust or a Section 8 company or a society and then do it. So that way you can say it is from your trust. Then you don't have a problem of advertisement.
Under disaster relief, quite a lot of things can get covered. The food supply we did during COVID times or these floods, whole lot of things. Disaster management, how the word itself suggests, whatever you would have done in terms of providing for that is qualifying as CSR. So food supply, medical aid, even though it can qualify as healthcare, it can qualify under disaster management also. Food supply can be covered under eradicating hunger, poverty, and malnutrition. Supply of clean water can be covered under sanitation and making available safe drinking water. So now you get a very broad idea. I'll quickly run through. Rural projects is quite simple to understand. Supplementing of government schemes like midday meals by corporates through additional nutrition. So even though government schemes are there.
Correct. Again, same. If you see here, I'm only supplementing it. That means government is already having its own midday scheme, midday meals, but I also provide extra nutritions. We say that we'll give that extra nutritions because you said now you have the nutritional dietitians who say that every day it must compose of so much of carbs, so much of vitamins, so much of iron should be there. And therefore you give that extra. That extra can be done. It's supplementing the government's job. That extra can be considered as a CSR activity.
Then we do our own research in the field of individual crops to find out the most cost optimum and agricultural sustainable farm practices. So on those lines, then to do product life cycle analysis from the soil conservation point of view. So this is anyway there in the FAQs, so which we will again make it available. So I'll skip through these.
I think we got overall an idea about this. I think we understood how broad it can be. Yes.
So let's say that there's a trust which generates the power using renewable and that is always lost. Then would that qualify for case of fees as well?
Very good question. In fact, you can tell this even for vocational training. I just add the same question only, one more example. You're providing vocational training. You're telling them how to do handicrafts. And when you're doing handicraft, they also produce bags. You know, they make the bags. And incidentally, those bags are also sold because part of vocational training only. And then you make a surplus there also. So the law has taken care of the surplus part, telling that whatever surplus arises incidental to the CSR activity is also deemed to be plowed back into CSR only and not part of your calculation. What I mean by not part of a calculation is if my outflow is supposed to be 10 crores, 10 crores will be my outflow. Extra, if this earns, let us say 1 crore extra, then that 1 crore also has to be spent, will become 11 crores. I think I'm clear on that. First of all, entity wise, you are a charitable trust. That means your incomes are all not at all taxable, right? So why are we going for chapter 6A?
So the reason being that there could be an entity which is generating renewable energy. So if there's a company which supplies which provides the money to such a company, which receives the ADI or EDG certification, then it will be eligible for CSR activities. Now the second part is that the trust, when they are generating some profit, whatever be nominal amount or be it, would they be eligible for tax exemption as well? Would they have to pay on it?
No. I think somewhere I'm missing the link. As far as the charitable institution is concerned, the charitable institution is a non-profit organization. So there's only having, they may have we call it as surplus, excess of income over expenditure is what they may have. It's not like a profit in real sense, correct? And that anyway, there's no question of taxability for them. As long as they take care of the requirements of 85% and those criteria under your 12A requirements. If they're taken, then they don't have any issue about chapter 6 at all. Then come to other question. I'll just try to, I don't know whether you meant that, but the other part is, it cannot be that there is a round tripping happening here only. That means I create a trust and trust supplies that to me only. You know what I mean? So if I am the beneficiary of that output, something is created by the trust and that I become the beneficiary of that output, then it's a normal business activity because they become ancillary and auxiliary products. So that we should be careful. As an entity which has given this to a trust, it should not happen to a round tripping wherein I only get the benefit out. Yeah, but I think you understood overall what I spoke on. Yeah. Coming soon. Coming soon. Nam deshdalle iro kashta saldo. Yeah, expenditure. First of all, we were telling spend in local area. Yeah, and he's telling, well, my local area is Manhattan, the Washington DC and the only local area. I was just joking, but I think I gave you the answer indirectly. Mera Bharat Mahan. Yeah. Can CSR be spent in cash? Dobbo. Paisa. So this is a question wherein whether I can give hard cash for CSR spending is the question. So let us look at it the other way around. Okay. Let us not look at it from the giver's point of view. Let us look at it from the receiver's point of view. Let's get into income tax. Can I receive donations in cash as a Section 8 entity? That will give you the answers. If you're coming under the exceptions, because during the COVID times, we had created circular exceptions, isn't it? So that anyway, that is routed through that only, that means which is being allowed. You will not have a problem there. But otherwise, I think you know the answer because you go by the receiver point of view because he's still an NGO, right?
Classrooms,
One more time.
at certain places, construction of washrooms or classrooms requires labor payouts, where most of the times they may not have their bank accounts. So it will be a mandatory obligation to spend in cash. How is the Companies Act looking at it?
See,
Not from the Income Tax Act.
correct. Now, let us look at it this way. First of all, let's be on the same page. Do we agree that this will be done by the implementing agency? That is by the NGO? Yeah, NGO is doing. Directly, I'm only taking care. If directly I'm only taking care, then you are very dangerous because even a casual labor has to be your labor loss part, wherein you have to still disclose about your labor registers because now once you're doing it directly, they're all deemed to be company's employees, even casual labor. And you know, casual labor declaration forms also has to be filed under labor laws. One more time, sir.
CLRA, ESI, PF, everything.
Everything. So very dangerous. If you ask me, I will never advise that. My advice would be that never do it from your company. Better give it to implementing agency. That is one of your own NGOs, like what sir is also telling. You land up with lot of unnecessary complications for that. Sir, can you give the mic there, please? Yes, sir.
Once they pay in cash, actually, they should look at the PF compliances, no? ESIC compliance. Ultimately, you will get into trouble there itself. There is the issue there.
Correct.
Or you should do through a contractor. He should do the work and ensure that the contractor is complying with all the labor regulations. That's all.
That is practically that is what is done also. We generally give it to
a contractor who executing the work. That's all.
absolutely.
And most corporates find these IAs who do that.
Yes, sir.
Cash. Bank transfer is done.
Then there's no problem only, no, sir. Absolutely no, because anyway you got your UPI payments are always allowed. No problem at all. Yes.
The next of it, Raja, is
Yeah, so just look at the other aspects here. Thanks. This is what Reliance did. What Reliance did was they did a Samohik Viva of the AIDS patients. Now this entire Samohik Viva which they spent was claimed as a CSR expenditure because if you see the whole activity, it's not just a Samohik Viva, it was for the AIDS patients. So that is where it gets linked. We're saying that again, you're doing it for a particular section of the society which requires to be taken care. Similarly, if you see here, war against plastic, Adidas did this, wherein they raised a war against plastic use. SR Foundation did something called as inclusion of the transgender people in job fairs. Now again, we are not talking about they taking it onto their own payrolls. It becomes normal course of business. What you do for yourself is always normal course of business, but they did this as an awareness program. As an awareness program, when you're doing it, then that will qualify as a CSR expenditure. These are all some of those practical examples we're trying to give so that you understand how they're all doing it. And here are some of the innovative ones which was done by all these entities. Now, ICICI Academy for Skills, look at what they did. They created one Academy for Skills. Shri was talking about vocational training programs, and this is how they created. One was for Academy for Skills. Then Microsoft created what is called as cyber security programs. They did that for cyber security. Then Skills for Marketing Training is called a SMART by Tech Mahindra. So Tech Mahindra did this called as Skills for Market Training. Again, does it mean that they're doing all this only for their own organization? No, it is for the regular certification courses which gets the approval from the government, because all vocational trainings basically means what? Your certificate what you give should be able to get them a job in some of these places. That means it will become a recognized certification that you have to take the permission from Ministry of Human Resource telling that we are going to give a certification diploma courses. Similarly here also, Oppo India, they also did this, wherein they talked about migrant workers, right? About how to ensure that migrant workers are given some justice. Again, that was another NGO activity they did. So all these are some of those creative CSR initiatives which are undertaken by many of these entities. Here is Maruti. I think I've already given you the example before. I told you about Maruti, wherein they adopted 40 industrial training institutes, ITI. So they said, we'll take over those ITI institutions and spend everything there, enhancing skill level of youth, making them employable. They're not telling into Maruti alone. They're telling they are making them employable into any of those ITI sectors. So all this was considered as CSR activity. Incidentally, if some of them land up coming into the company, that's not a problem. Incidentally. But what happens is that is why what very cleverly they did was they have adopted industrial training institutes. Now, industrial training institutes does not deal with only automobile sector. It'll be dealing with the electronic sector. It'll be talking about the hardware sector. So therefore, it is much broad-based. So if you're telling only here, which is coming only to me, then that becomes a questionable transaction. So nobody did a questionable transaction. They've all done it in broad-based, so that it's not incidentally one or two may come to me, no problem about it. Absolutely no problem. No issues, no issues. Now let's come to what is not CSR. Very interesting. What does not qualify as CSR at all? Let's start. Anything which is not there in Schedule 7, anything which is not there in Schedule 7 is not a CSR activity, because Schedule 7 is wide enough to cover a lot of activities, because we saw how you can interpret Schedule 7. CSR activities outside India, sir. Our local area, right? So anything outside India is not a CSR. One exception is there, wherein our sports players, all the sports players who are representing India for Olympics, now they require training outside India, because we don't have such kind of infrastructure facilities in India, which will be equivalent to the requirement they want. See, can you tell me what is the biggest training facility that is required for an Indian Olympic player? What is the most important thing that is required? You know what? Shall I tell you? Opposite player. That is supposed to be the biggest thing required. Everything else you have, but all the other fellows who play against you are Dabba fellows. Then how will you actually train? You're not being trained at all. So only when you go and fight against those guys, right? Then you know where you stand. And therefore, for them, the biggest is to go there to get those players. But those players are not coming here. So you have to go there, not to play against them, to enhance your skills. That is the only exception they've given, wherein the training for those who are representing India. They said for that, going outside is okay, except that in all other cases, it has to be Mera Bharat Mahan. Yes? Great. Outside India activities, perfect, sir. What sir is telling is, if I'm doing something outside India, I will not call it as part of my CSR. So just like how we discussed before the break, you're not banned from spending. Like how we told you before the break also, we were discussing, that you can issue the shares above the valuation price, as long as you're okay to pay tax. Like that, here also, you're not banned from spending the money. Only thing is, it will not qualify as CSR expenditure. You still want to spend, you can spend. Are we clear on this? Right. Then, activities exclusively for the benefit of employees of the company or their family members. Anything which is going to benefit employees, because that will come out as staff welfare. Staff welfare is incidental to business itself. Similarly, activities undertaken in the normal course of business. That's why I said never link it with business. Like we talked about advertisements, which I can link it with my business, then it becomes difficult to prove. Then contribution to any political party, yay. So all this does not qualify as CSR. Then one-off events such as marathons, awards, contributions, sponsorships. This is sponsored by, like your IPL match and all. They'll say this is sponsored by so and so, and that's not considered as CSR at all. Any sponsorships are not considered as CSR. Expenses incurred for fulfilling any act or law. Do you know many of these factories have a compulsory requirement to have a canteen. They'll have a compulsory requirement to have a dispensary, especially the manufacturing units, if you see there. Now, can you say, oh, I created a dispensary, so healthcare. So I'll claim it under Schedule 7 as health and all that. What is compulsory to be maintained under various labor laws cannot be called as CSR activities. And I'm sure many of you who deal with manufacturing industries will know it. There are certain environmental compulsory, what do you call it, as recycling plants you have to put up next to the the outflow of the manufacturing entities. Now you can't say I'm doing environment protection. That was compulsorily required under that license itself. That is not called as CSR. Are we clear? that will be not called as CSR. So these are the points which have been considered as not CSR at all. Now, this is again part of the definition of CSR now. In the definition of CSR, it says CSR does not include the following. So it says this is not called as CSR at all. Now let's come to compliance calendar. Now this is very important now from our point of view as practice as to what you have to take care in CSR matters. Can you just tell this compliance part?
It is quite simple. There is not very complicated like what we saw in the earlier session of funding compliance. Here, it's a calendar year which is given. Q4 typically is a board meeting for reviewing the CSR activity done during the financial year. So whatever you would have done during the financial year, because your CSR spend is the financial year spend, the last quarter, which is the first quarter of the calendar year, you will take care of that. Actually, at the start of the financial year, you will review the CSR done in the previous year. This is only indicative we are telling. Nothing is given under law. You can draft board minutes in such a way that these points get covered. A review of CSR done in the previous year, then review of the progress of CSR done in the half year. So that half year, what you would have done, you can put that in the minutes. And if required, review the general CSR activity or any other reason. So in terms of CSR, there is nothing you have to mandatorily do apart from the CSR spend that the board has to approve.
The firefighting is here. The firefighting for all of us will be in the last quarter because company will not have spent anything. Yeah, last 3 months, wherein you say this becomes very important. Board meeting for reviewing the CSR activity done for the financial year. So this is something which we have to take care. In January, February, March, like how we'll be busy taking care of whether we have given proof for TDS for all the employees, how much TDS to deduct, whether all the ETC proof has been given January, February, March, full busy. So like that, this also for CSR, if they have not spent during the year, last quarter becomes very, very important to ensure they have spent. If they still don't spend, then comes the below points.
Check if there is any ongoing project unspent amount. If there is unspent amount, you have to think that actually most clients complain to us telling you didn't tell. We send repeated reminders. We tell them this is your CSR spend. You are supposed to spend, despite the fact they miss it. If they miss it and they don't spend, you know where it will go. It will go to PM Cares within the 6 months close of the financial year. You have to spend there. In case there is an ongoing project which is an unspent amount, then you have to transfer it to an unspent CSR amount account. That is where the money is going to go to. So this is as far as the CSR ROC Companies Act compliance is concerned. Now comes the CSR rules which were amended. Most of it have already been touched on. I will go directly to the implementation agency where who can spend such CSR amount, to whom you can give the CSR amount. It can be a Section 8 company that we all know, a trust or a society which is exempt under 1023C of the Income Tax Act or registered under Section 12A and 80G. Raja already dealt with this in the start. He told you what is an implementing agency, then what is actually a trust and a society. You can go ahead and do. These can be established by the company themselves, or it can be established by the government or through an act of parliament. Or these the trust whom you are going to work with should have a track record of 3 years of this CSR activity. This also we've already answered. So who are the eligible entities? So can every trust or Section 8 company be a CSR entity? No, it is not possible. Why? Because you have to be registered under 12A and 80G or under the 1023 category. Only these are the type of trusts who can be eligible for implementing agencies. Then what kind of activities have to be done by such entities? This is no brainer. It is your Schedule 7 activities these trusts have to be doing. Whether all trusts, NGOs, Section 8 companies can register under CSR rules? No, because the entities should have a track record of 3 years. The 3 years track record is important. You as your own company, you are spending it, then you don't have to worry. Otherwise, if you are going with a trust, it should have a track record of 3 years. Then there are further eligibility criteria like you should be registered under CSR 1 that we will see a little later. Is the track record criteria applicable in all cases? No, if the company either singly or along with any other company it is going to spend, then such track record is not required. So if you don't want to do it on your own, then you can do it together with other corporates and come up with what can be your CSR spend. So for CSR1, this is very important, where anybody receiving the CSR funds, mandatory that we have to get a CSR1 registration. So CSR1 is mandatory to be filed for implementing agencies to become eligible to receive CSR funds. Only then you can pay. So not that everybody needs to register, but if you want to receive money, then you have to register. Except the entities, that is the 1023C. Sir was asking about hospitals and colleges, whether you can directly donate. They don't have to be having a CSR1. Then if IA is formed by a company for doing CSR activities, the reference of the SIN to be given thereof. So when you are filing the CSR1 form, there you have to fill the CIN. On submission of the form CSR1, a unique CSR registration number will be generated by the system automatically. So that also you need to take care. The documents required, anyway, this presentation is going to be available, the trust deed and those type of things you need to do. And who has to digitally certify? So for a company, a director, for a trust, a trustee, those type of requirements are there. Whoever can sign, they will be the authorized signatories. Now come to the CSR2. So CSR2 not only forms part of your AOC 4, you have to attach it as a part of your AOC 4, which is your annual return. But in the current rules, they've also told up to 31st March 2023, you have to file the e-form CSR1 before 31st March of 2024. The last year also it was there, the prior to that year also was there. This year also currently it holds good. So you have to file the e-form CSR2. And display of the CSR activities on the website is a requirement. The profits from the CSR expenditure. So we'll see what is the minimum CSR expenditure we are all required to do. 2% of net profits. What is the maximum? Maximum can be anything. Only star mark is that the board has to approve that. So this surplus from CSR, already we answered that any surplus that is coming out of the CSR activities that is taken care of, you're generating revenue through that, or surplus, it has to flow back to the CSR trust itself, the CSR account. Now, if you have done a CSR expenditure in excess of the 2% net profit, so such CSR profit which is in excess, such amount can be set off against the requirement of spend for the next subsequent 3 years. So it is only capped at the next subsequent 3 years. Let's say I have spent excess amount of 2 crores, and this 2 crores out of that next MCA portal. Yeah, correct. CSR1. You will generate that through filing CSR1. See, that unique SIN number is for another entity. Not all entities you need to give that. Correct. Correct. If I'm not wrong, that some certificate registration number you have to put or something like that. Yeah, no problem. No problem. If by registering, you will be eligible to receive. That's the only thing.
Sir, that we are talking about the corporate identity number. For example, if Reliance is starting Reliance Foundation, because Reliance Foundation is started by Reliance, when they're creating foundation, you'll tell this is the sin of Reliance. Because Reliance is starting this. At that time, they don't require sin. Then there is no sin.
It's not mandatory for all entities. SIN is not there for all entities. So some registration number, anybody who's practically done it.
Yes, sir. Correct.
By the CA or CS, as ma'am informed.
Correct.
Now, in many cases, what I have also observed is when the trust is 1 year or 2 year old, and they are very keen to take the CSR funding, they give that answer as yes, though they have not completed 3 years. In those cases, tomorrow, if MCA or ROC find out these type of trust who has given a false information at the time of registration, what may be the impact?
There are penal provisions in the
Okay.
Subsequent slides.
There is no impact for the donor.
For the
See,
CSR.
because donor does not know whether you have done it correctly or not. Correct? It is for the donee. I think you understood what I'm saying. Company which is giving the money to an NGO, it only sees whether that NGO is registered under CSR1.
But won't there be a obligation on the CSR committee also to look into whether
Absolutely.
the trust has done a sufficient work or
Absolutely.
not?
Correct.
So where they can check whether these trusts or NGOs have a 3 years of experience or not?
Correct. So as a personal requirement, the CSR committee has to go through that to see whether, irrespective of what is filed in CSR1, you should also see whether there has a track record of 3 years, because there's still a responsibility of the committee. So committee must have enough of documentary backup to prove when this, because there's always a registration document of creation of Section 8 company or the trust or whatever. So you have to see the formation document. They have taken all that as an audit evidences.
Trusts. Will there be any implications on the donor also, sir? In the practical scenario?
Yeah, in the practical scenario, I can be holding the committee responsible for violation of CSR rules, no? Because 3 years is not that you're not checked properly.
Penalty
That-
provisions.
We
that
don't
will
have
come.
committee.
Penalty is going to come through. If you can go through the next one, because I think we're time up.
Okay. So basically any excess amount, you can set it off in the subsequent 3 years. So the cap is only 3 years, until which time you can set off such excess. But like what Raja said in the start, it has to be approved by the board that it is excess spending, then only you can set it off. Any unspent CSR amount, if it is for ongoing projects, you have to transfer it to the unspent CSR account within 30 days from the end of financial year. We discussed this earlier. Other than for ongoing projects, if there are unspent amount, it is mandatory to go through the PM CARES fund and those type of things.
Yeah, so I'll just conclude with the last part of it. I will take it. I'll just take you through the last part of it, what is required for us. And that is, okay, this question and all, I think we've seen it, no? So you can escape and go to penalty there, down. No, yeah. So this is the problem, sir, what you asked. So what happens as far as penalty is concerned is like this. If any violation of the CSR provisions, for the company, it is twice the unspent amount required to be transferred to any fund included in Schedule 7 or unspent CSR account, as the case may be, or 1 crore rupees, whichever is less. And for every officer in defer, 1/10 of the unspent amount, etc. Now, if at all that is not a eligible trust itself, then it will be deemed to be unspent amount. Because it was not, it's like how we discussed, can I send it outside India? You can spend outside India, but that is not called as part of CSR. So this also will qualify in the same way. It will be treated as unspent amount. That is where they land up with the trouble. So that is where it becomes important for the committee to ensure audit evidences are established properly. In fact, I will show you one utilization certificate. Can you just see that utilization certificate? Yeah. If you see, this is how we always say you have to take a utilization certificate. Specimen of CFO certification for utilization of funds dispersed for CSR activities. Name of the CSR project, implemented through whom, which agency, then amount sanctioned, amount dispersed, amount utilized, and unspent amount. And here, so this point, if you see, the books of accounts and other records of the CSR projects as available with the company or the implementing agency gives reasonable assurance of the utilization. So that means we're also giving a certificate telling that I've seen the books of accounts. I think we answered that question part, right? So this is how, and you can get this format from the guidance note on CSR. You have a guidance note on CSR, which is issued by the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. ICSI has given this guidance note on CSR. You can get it through the regular search engine. You can find it there. They're giving you all these formats also. These formats are readily available with the ICSI guidance note on CSR. You will get it there. And even for CSR1, if you have any doubts on the CSR1 filing also, you've got CA Institute's guidance note on CSR1. It is there separately, so which tells you as to what all you have to take care while doing CSR1 registration. Yeah, you get it in search engine. ICI guidance note is there on CSR1. And impact assessment, I think that's okay. This is the 10 crores and above only. Great. So I think overall we understood about CSR. Only one last point on this. Two types of expenditure I can have. What are the two types of expenditure? One is one time, other one is ongoing projects. Most of the companies as a last minute option, when they're not yet spent, yengo adjust madbeku. At that time, they will say, I'll call it as ongoing project. So two things have been clarified. Number one, can I call one project which was supposed to be one time as ongoing? Answer is yes. And MCA said it's okay. MCA said you can pass a board resolution and tell that it's an ongoing project, that you have converted into an ongoing project. That means you started it as one-time project, but you decide to make it as a ongoing project is still allowed as long as the objective is CSR, they don't mind. They're a little liberal on this point. Other aspect of this is, when do you say ongoing project has commenced? See, you have to commence the project in that year. Let us say for the year ending 31st March 23, you have crossed the limits. 135 one limit you have crossed. So in 23, 24 you have to spend, correct? So let us say I have now come to end of 24. Now I'm in March 24, I have not yet spent anything. Now, can I say I'm doing something as ongoing? Because spending is required, because I told you cash. You have to actually spend, not accrual system. So how do you show I've already spent? The only way you can do it is two things. One, if you have not spent anything, then like what Sri already told you, transfer the money to PM cares, etc. For that you have got how much time? 6 months time is there. So you still have 6 months time from the end of the year. So 31st March tak kuch nahi kiya, you have not done anything, no problem. Kuch nahi kiya to kuch nahi kiya. That money you send it off to PM cares or Ganga, Swachh Bharat and Clean Ganga, etc. You can give it off to that funds, because you still have 6 months time to do it. So is there something that earth will fall on us if I don't spend on 31st March? Actually, no, because I still have 6 months time to give it off there. One option. Second, but I want to do ongoing project. I don't want to give it off like this. I want to do some ongoing project. Now the question is, ongoing project should have been commenced during the year only. What I mean by commenced during the year, that is from 1st April to 31st May. In my example, by 31st March of 24, I should have commenced the ongoing project. Now, how do I say what is commencement? What is commencement? When do you say one ongoing project, 3 years project has commenced? When do we say? We'll take one photo for Gudli Puja. Yeah, with one Gudli Puja we did and all that. Is that how we say? How do we say that you have commenced ongoing project? Sorry? With whom? Oh, that's why you simply I say. Amount spent. One is you have to show that you have actually started to spend some money on that project, and you have the CSR policy telling about what is that project. One option, correct. One more. Committee, so CSR committee has been formed. CSR policy has been framed that it's an ongoing project. But did you commence the project? Absolutely right. That policy is ready, committee is ready. But did you commence the project? Because project should be commenced then only. Answer? Spend means you get very close to what I wanted, correct? If you have spent like what sir already told, that is enough to show. Even 10 rupees you have spent, it's enough for me. That you already started to spend. It may be 100 crore project. Fantastic. So fantastic. What they have told in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs as a clarification is, because it's an ongoing project, ensure you have the work order signed. Because this is as good as a contract. So ensure that you have a work order signed for this and create the documentation for the work order. And then whatever was unspent, in our example, full amount unspent, let us say, by April 30th, like she showed the compliance calendar, by April, ensure you transfer this money into unspent account, unspent CSR account, and then say from there I have 3 years time to spend this money. So the documentation to show the work order is very important. It is there in the FAQs of MCA circular itself, which says that can be done. That's all it is. So I think we are clear about one time and ongoing projects also. Are we clear? Yes. Unspent here, like how you have the dividends account you create in bank, separate bank account, like that you create unspent account. Perfect, perfect. So I think we are clear on this. I think we are also clear how to implement it. Those 3 agencies through which you can implement. I think we are clear on that also. Fantastic. So any other doubt? No? Yes. Yeah, we have to. Very good point, sir. Thank you for raising that point. I'll tell you what has happened in many of the cases. Company says, I have given the money to NGO. I have given the money to check de diya, deko. And actually it is lying in BRS, not even in bank. I'll BRS alli check given anta. Andre actually they would have given later. Not even then. BRS al kutide alli. So they've given the check de diya na, mera kaam ho gaya. That is why I started my conversation telling it's a principal agent relationship. So if it's a principal agent relationship, if the agent has not yet spent, it means the principal has not yet spent. I think we are clear on this. So it will remain as an unspent amount. So you have to follow the same procedure what I told you. If it is one time, within 6 months, give it to PM Cares or Clean Ganga, etc. If it is ongoing, within 30 days, that is April 30th, transfer it to unspent. Ask that NGO to give back the money and put it to unspent account and again give it to them again. Are we clear? Huh. Correct. Correct. I understood. So that is why if you see here, sir, I've given one checklist. If you can see the checklist, I'll just take 5 more minutes to close. Hina, is it okay? Just 5 more minutes. So if you see the checklist, sir, type of the project proposed project activities, can we come down? Who are the direct beneficiaries, location of the project, then who is the agency which is doing all this activity for you here. Now here, if you see what are all the objectives they've done before and your project, if you see here, can you come down? Here. What are the details about the physical and milestones deliverables to be achieved through the proposed CSR? Everything is taken care. What is the budget estimates? And then documents showing the fund resources documents. Creating, this is the checklist what you have to create, sir. And then the mandatory requirements are what you asked there at the end here. If you see mandatory documents required at the initial stages, copy of the trust deed, registration certificate, bylaws to show about the past 3 years here. So this is part of our checklist. So only then I can say that I've taken care of my requirements, what is required. Then if civil construction is involved, documents of ownership, civil construction, whatever is done, approved copies of the plans, if there's a civil construction activity. So look at the documentation. If capital asset is there, then what are those capital assets, duration, quotations, what were the 3 quotations they took, best price was there. All this documentation we have to maintain. This is the kind of checklist that we're supposed to use for all the CSR. So therefore, it is not neki kar darya mein dal. Neki kar and maintain enough of documentation to prove that it has been spent. I think we are clear on this. Thank you so much.
Sir asked.
All this will be available in CA Institute. I'll give it to them. They'll give it to you. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyway, since Hina is talking, we'll stay back, sir. We can do vote of thanks at the end only.
Okay. That was a lively session, both in terms of PPTs presented and the knowledge dissemination, both by both speakers. A big round of applause for both of them for that fantastic session. Thank you so much, sir, for that. And thank you so much, madam, for that fantastic efforts. On behalf of members present here and the managing committee members of Bangalore branch, we would like to hand over a memento to Sri Lakshmi and gift voucher to CA Vijaya Raja, sir. As a token of respect and gratitude, can I request CA Rejo, our MC member, to come over to desk and hand over the memento. Thank you. Now we shall break for tea and reassemble sharply at 4:30 p.m. for the fourth and last session. I request all the members to drop the feedback form given by Turbo Comply in the entrance. Thank you.